Chapter 496, Diabolism and the Chaotic World. Have you prepared the ship I told you about previously? When Wang Xian heard her saying he was shorter than her, he looked to her feet. She was still wearing heels. Wang Xian had no idea why some foreign girls would like this type of stuff. However, with Ajaya's current strength, whatever she wore wouldn't affect her movement. If I gave them all the things here today, you would have been left with nothing. Ajaya didn't answer him directly. Her eyes were fixed on him and she wore a beautiful smile. Your life is still in my hands. Wang Xian looked at her and remarked plainly. Let's not talk about something that will spoil the mood. As long as you agree to marry me, I will naturally send these items to you. Moreover, I can even tell you every word in the Fire God's secret book and the Holy Water Scripture. What do you think? I believe the dowry is definitely a sufficient and handsome sum. Ajaya walked around Wang Xian and commented with smiles. Impossible. It's not just I that doesn't agree. My girlfriends wouldn't agree to it either. Wang Xian answered helplessly. I can't remain here and play along with you. I've got to get back tomorrow. Ajaya raised an eyebrow and said, in that case, I'll return with you. Aren't you interested in the Fire God's secret book? If I don't tell you today. She didn't complete her sentence and simply stared at Wang Xian. You want to go back with me? Wang Xian looked at her and his expression was changing. He was pondering what might happen subsequently. What? It still wouldn't work. In that case, don't even think about leaving this place. Ajaya stared angrily at him. All right. But I have to inform you. Forget it, I'll tell you again when we are traveling. Get your guys to prepare first. Wang Xian thought about it and saw how she reacted. In the end, he nodded his head helplessly. All right, you can have the ship anytime. If you don't mind, drop by the royal palace for a meal. Ajaya smiled and wrapped her arms around Wang Xian's arm. All right. However, I have to leave by noon. Wang Xian thought about it before nodding his head. Maintaining a positive relationship with the royal family of Dubai would definitely be beneficial to him. All right. I'm going back to take a nap. Why don't we go together? After all, I'll be marrying you in the future. Ajaya held his arm and blinked flirtatiously at him. Sure. Why don't we just do it here? Wang Xian smiled sheepishly. Ajaya's body stiffened and she saw Wang Xian's teasing eyes. She snorted and left. Wang Xian chuckled and headed back to the hotel. When Wang Xian returned to his room, it was already 2 a.m. The next morning, the bell to his room rang when dawn had just broken. Wang Xian opened the door and Ajaya walked in directly with a set of clothes. Your clothes were in tatters yesterday. I got people to custom make some for you. Try it. If you have nothing to attend to, let me bring you to tour the royal palace. Ajaya smiled, handed him the clothes and said as she walked into the room. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head. Changing into the clothes he received, he saw that they were fitting. However, what made him speechless was that all of them were bright red. They resembled a couple's costume with what Ajaya was wearing. Not bad. Let's go for lunch. Ajaya smiled, nodded her head and walked to Wang Xian to hold his arm before they left the room. Along the way, they drew attention from countless people. It was especially so for Ajaya who was wearing a crown. Her bright red clothes and her fiery red hair were extremely attention-grabbing. After having breakfast with Wang Xian, they headed towards the royal palace of Dubai. Ajaya brought him around the royal palace. At noon, Wang Xian had a meal with Ajaya's parents and her younger brother. There weren't many people and there weren't many rules. When Wang Xian saw the king of Dubai, he wasn't reserved and simply chatted casually with him. Have you prepared the stuff I told you about? After having lunch, Wang Xian waved his hand and said goodbye to Ajaya's family. They are prepared. When your guys are here, I'll send some people to bring them over. Ajaya played with her hair while speaking to him. Great. In that case, we will be flying to the capital of China before heading to where I stay. Wang Xian nodded his head and said to her. Anything will do. I'm following you no matter what. I have never left Dubai before. Will China be a fun place? Ajaya asked enthusiastically. It's more beautiful in terms of landscape. Almost everywhere is a desert here. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked at her clothing. Are you going to take the flight in this attire? She looked just how she had previously with a crown on her head. However, she went further this time with a truncheon in her hands. A level 13 spiritual staff. What's wrong with it? Ajaya tilted her head and revealed her fair and flawless neck. As you wish. After all, she was the goddess of flames. No matter what she wore, her strength was still the same. Let me send the little brat a message. Wang Xian took out his phone and headed towards the airport with Ajaya. Just as he sent out the message, he received a call from Guan Shuqing. Hello, Shuqing. Xiao Xian, when are you coming back? I'll reach Shangjing in the afternoon. What's the matter? Wang Xian asked curiously. Nothing. Just come back as soon as possible. The underworld is really chaotic now and the Sacred Soul sect was annihilated. Diabolism has surfaced recently and there are killings everywhere in the entire underworld. Just last night, an unparalleled expert from Diabolism came to the Sui clan. Really? Why did he visit the Sui clan? Wang Xian was shocked. A warning. They are warning the Sui clan to not get involved. They are frantically executing revenge on the sects that besieged them 50 years ago. Wang Xian nodded his head. It's great that things are fine. I'll be reaching the airport soon. I'll look for you once I arrive. Alright, Xiao Xian. I won't feel safe until you're here. Guan Shuqing hung up the phone after adding 2 more lines. Your girlfriend? Ajaya asked curiously. She couldn't understand Chinese and thus didn't know what Wang Xian was talking about. Yeah, she's my girlfriend. Wang Xian replied with a laugh. It seems like I'll have to learn Chinese in the future, chuckled Ajaya. Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders. He took out his phone and entered the underworld website. I've only been in Dubai for 3 to 4 days and there have been such major changes to the underworld. Looking at the various pieces of news on the underworld website, Wang Xian was astonished. Diabolism and the chaotic world. Sacred Soul sect was annihilated and an unparalleled expert has fallen. The 4 devil sects of Devil Corpse Palace, Devil Spirits Temple, Remains and Reed's spirits have shown exceptionally terrifying strength. Devil Corpse Palace easily annihilated the Sacred Soul sect. Emperor Qi of Diabolism wishes to challenge Nia Wushuang, sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect, on the peak of Huashan. Vampires, zombies, spirits. Terrifying Diabolism. All the messages were related to Diabolism. Since the end of the Outstanding Young Heroes competition, the entire underworld had undergone major changes. Chapter 497, Painted Skin. Diabolism. Wang Xian murmured as he read the messages on the underworld forum. Diabolism's cultivation was circled around the bloodline. Their cultivation means were usually gruesome. Vampires, ghouls, and cursed venoms were the work of Diabolism. In addition, they often got in touch with dark and evil stuff during their cultivation, which in turn, distorted their mind and character. As a result, they were eccentric, fearless, and unorthodox. Therefore, they were known as Diabolism, which often got besieged and wiped out by the ordinary martial artists. Wang Xian was indifferent to Diabolism. They arrived at the airport where they took a plane back to Shangjing. Ajaya, who was dressed like a queen, was a spotlight wherever she went. She also received some attention, even in the first-class cabin on the plane. Ajaya smiled as she did not mind the attention at all. As a princess, she could easily disregard the curious gazes cast on her. When the plane landed at the airport, it was already 8 p.m. Wang Xian walked out of the airport with Ajaya and took a cab to Sui Clan. Ajaya was looking around with curiosity, and would pose questions to Wang Xian from time to time. Wang Xian would always answer with a smile while the car continued its journey. Boom! Just then, an explosion was heard ahead. What an unlucky day to encounter such a thing. No wonder nobody has been willing to drive at night for the past few days. Upon hearing the explosion ahead, the cab driver was flustered. Hastily, he made a U-turn. What's the matter? Driver? Asked Wang Xian to the cab driver with a frown. The night in Shangjing has been restless for the past few days. It's chaotic. Damn, I'm not driving tonight. I'll drop you guys later without you paying, the driver said with embarrassment. Wang Xian knit his brows slightly. We'll get out here then. Great, hurry now. Apparently, the taxi driver learned something from his colleagues, which resulted in him braking the car immediately. What's the matter? Have we reached the spot? Ajaya queried Wang Xian. Not yet, but it's not far away from here. Let's walk over. Wang Xian shook his head and replied to Ajaya as he looked ahead. I'm following you, no matter what. Ajaya cast her gaze ahead. The booming sound just now indicated a fight over there. Let's check it out. Wang Xian nodded. He was surprised to see Shangjing in such a mess. The duo stalked over. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow as soon as a faint bloody mist emerged. Hayak, the Dongmen clan wiped out the devil sects 50 years ago. But 50 years have passed, and today marks the doom of Dongmen clan. Ha! The remains will skin all of you and craft you into an art piece. Your bones will be made into perfect weapons. Ha! Our Laozu annihilated the sect leader of remains 50 years ago. You still have the cheek to seek revenge now. Courting your own doom. Hayak, the Dongmen clan will be annihilated in 10 days. How arrogant. As Wang Xian and Ajaya approached, they could hear two cold voices. Bloody mist lingered in the air while the pungent blood caused Ajaya to frown. Wang Xian looked over to where a score of young men stood. They were confronting each other with killing intent filling their eyes. Dongmen clan, one of the 3 main sacred clans in Shangjing. Remains, one of the 4 main sects in diabolism. 2 of the forces were engaged in a fight. It was no wonder that they did not care about other things. Sports cars were parked on both sides. Apparently, the disciples of Remains were ambushing the Dongmen clan. That is. Wang Xian peered at the disciples of Remains. All 10 of them had creepy appearances. There was a mixture of old and young, and some of them were women. Those ladies looked extremely glamorous and alluring. On a closer look, these disciples of Remains were extremely queer. They seemed to be wearing masks, which was made out of human skin. The painted skin. Wang Xian thought of a phrase. There was an introduction to Remains in the Underworld Forum. They used the bones of deceased experts to refine them into a complete bone puppet before wrapping it with human skin. Using this unique technique, one can be revived. It was as though they were making a spiritual weapon. Bone puppets with spirituality possess domineering combat power. These disciples of Remains obviously did not have the strength to make a bone puppet. But they could plaster painted skin on themselves. After plastering the painted skin, they would obtain a strong defense. How perverted this is. They could really fight with the ninjas from Japan. Ajaya had seen through their true colors and remarked with disgust. Well, everything from that small country came from us. Too bad they learned all the bad things instead of the good ones. Wang Xian shook his head. Now, he finally understood why everyone wanted to eliminate diabolism. Just this painted skin alone required the use of the skin from someone who had just died. Such means were absolutely sick and cruel. A score of them confronting each other with 10 remains with bones in their hands, and people from Dongmen clan holding their short swords. Let's go. Wang Xian took a look and said to Ajaya, taking a detour from the side. Be it sacred clan or diabolism, everything is good as long as they don't provoke me. Okay. Ajaya cast a curious gaze at them before holding onto Wang Xian's arm, making a detour. Her. Wait. What delicate skin. Just then, one of the remains disciples spotted Wang Xian and Ajaya. She peered over and took a measure of Ajaya. A girl, who was extremely alluring and pretty, gave off a faint bloody vibe on her face and scarlet lips. Hong Yang, let's finish off these fellows from Dongmen clan before we do other things, an old man with a wrinkled face said with a frown. Even though he looked like an old man, his voice sounded just like any young person. I'll leave it to the 9 of you. Such delicate skin, I must collect. Hong Yang licked her fingers and chuckled. Ha, no doubt this is the diabolism. All of you deserve to die. One of the young men from Dongmen clan laughed out loud as he swept a confident gaze at the 9 people beside him. Kill them all, the young man from Dongmen clan in the middle exclaimed coldly and rushed out. Hong Yang ignored all of them and sucked her finger as she strode towards Wang Xian and Ajaya. With admiration in her eyes, she took a measure of Ajaya, summing her up with eyes filled with surprise and appreciation. A foreign babe. I'm still short a foreign babe in my collection. It looks like today is my day. I've made up my mind. When I advance to Inborn Realm, I'll make you my first bone puppet. Chapter 498, All of you are courting death. What is she talking about? Ajaya frowned and asked Wang Xian upon seeing that flirtatious woman scrutinizing her from top to bottom. She's saying she's going to skin you, preserve you, and use your bones to build her first bone puppet. Wang Xian smiled and translated for Ajaya. Ajaya had inherited the fire god's legacy and reached the budding realm. Yet, a brat that hadn't even reached the inborn realm was talking about killing her, removing her skin and building a bone puppet with her bones. That was truly courting her own demise. What? Ajaya raised an eyebrow and looked at the flirtatious woman before her in shock. Arg! At this moment, screams of desperation resounded from behind Wang Xian and Ajaya. Ha! Scumbags from the remains. When you guys entered Shangjing, we picked up your trails. Ambushing us? How ignorant and stupid are you guys? Today, all 10 of you aren't getting away. Inborn. You are an inborn expert. Scheming Dongmen clan. Ha! Nothing is scheming when it comes to dealing with trash like you guys. The aura of an inborn expert shrouded over and wretched cries from disciples of the remains reverberated. That young man was killing without reservations with the red sword in his hand. With his inborn level strength, it was easy for him to deal with this group of disciples from the remains who had not reached the inborn realm. What? Hong Yang, who had been scrutinizing Ajaya, was astonished to see 5 of her companions being killed when she turned around. Fear crept up on her. Despicable Dongmen clan. You guys are as despicable as your Laozu. Hong Yang's expression was hideous at this juncture. As she waved her arms, bloody red mist shrouded forward. At the same time, she fled rapidly. Thinking of escaping under my eyes? The young man with the red sword looked at her in contempt. He lifted his head slightly, flew into the air and lunged with his sword towards Hong Yang. Fuck you, Dongmen clan. All of you will be annihilated by us soon. Feeling the terrifying killing intent from behind her, Hong Yang was bitter. Die. Wretched beings like you guys that wear our human skin. The young man lunged forward with his sword towards the back of Hong Yang. Arg! Hong Yang cried pitifully and fell to the ground. However, a naked figure fled at an even more incredible speed suddenly. A cicada casting off its skin. She has discarded her human skin. The young man was taken aback. In a cold and harsh tone, he continued, "Do you think you can escape like this?" Holding the sword in his hand, he swung it rapidly. The blood-red sword drew a trail of blood in the air. Arg! A wretched scream resounded. The lips of the young man curved into a smile and showed a satisfied look. He turned around and noticed that all the other 9 corpses of the disciples of remains were now on the ground. "Brother Liang, you are too incredible. How did you manage to guess that the disciples of the remains would ambush us?" "Ha! They would have never expected us to foresee their actions." A young man looked at the corpses on the ground and started flattering the young man with the sword. "Ha! They are really courting their own deaths to enter our territory and go against us." Dongmen Liang lifted his head and smiled. As he waved his arm, the bloody red sword that he had thrown ahead previously returned to his grip. "Brother Liang, you have grown stronger once again. That's the greatest escape technique of the remains, and yet she couldn't escape from Brother Liang." A group of young men gathered over and flattered him. Dongmen Liang kept his sword behind his back and smiled gently. From him, one could pick up a superiority vibe. He looked towards where Wang Xian and Ajaya were and his eyes beamed with excitement. When Hong Yang from the remains was approaching them, Dongmen Liang had noticed Ajaya. Attractive height and figure together with her breathtaking beauty. With the crown on her head, she resembled a noble goddess. Moreover, she was a foreigner. Even though Dongmen Liang had seen many breathtaking beauties, his heart was still set ablaze when he saw Ajaya. A foreign beauty like her was among the best of the best in the world. He lifted his head, wore a faint smile and walked directly towards Ajaya. "Hey, pretty, I'm Dongmen Liang. I hope you aren't shocked by what happened." Dongmen Liang said to Ajaya with a face of smiles. She looked at Wang Xian, baffled, as she couldn't understand. Dongmen Liang was also taken aback. Noticing her confused looks, Dongmen Liang repeated it again in English. Ajaya understood but simply shook her head and looked at Wang Xian. "Let's go." Ajaya nodded her head with a smile. "Huh?" Dongmen Liang was taken aback and his face quickly flushed red with embarrassment. The group of young men around him exchanged glances and immediately shouted to Wang Xian, "We saved you guys. Aren't you two going to repay us before leaving?" "Oh." Wang Xian stopped in his tracks and looked at them with ridicule. "How shall we repay you?" Since ancient times, beautiful women would repay heroes who saved them with their bodies. "In that case, just let the beautiful woman with you marry our brother Liang." "Ha!" a young man shouted loudly. The others around him nodded their heads in agreement. Their words were arrogant and their actions were brazen. They were too full of themselves. Dongmen Liang raised an eyebrow and didn't say a word. However, he was scrutinizing Ajaya from top to bottom and revealed a vile smirk. "He's giving me dirty looks." Ajaya turned to Wang Xian and said. "Their words are dirty and crude too." Ruthlessness gleamed in the eyes of Wang Xian as he spoke to Ajaya. "Brat, what the hell are you saying there? Speak something that we can understand. And now, leave the foreign girl with you behind." Looking at their arrogance, Wang Xian shook his head. As he waved his arm, a stream of flames shot towards them. "Huh?" The young man was shocked to see Wang Xian attacking him with flames while he was still speaking. However, before he could react to it, the flames had fallen on him. Without any cries, the young man was reduced to dust. That ball of flames continued to attack the remaining group of young men around. "What?" Fear flashed in the eyes of the prideful Dongmen Liang who was standing beside Wang Xian. "You! Why are all of you so eager to die?" Wang Xian looked at Dongmen Liang with contempt. He waved his arm again and flames flew towards him. How is this possible? The young man was terrified. He released his aura and blasted it towards the flames. Bam! However, the flames weren't affected at all and fell on him. Boom! Arg! Dongmen Liang's eyes widened and were filled with desolation and disbelief. I'm from the Dongmen clan. How dare you kill me? Arg! Let's go. Wang Xian looked away in contempt. Regardless of whether it was the remains or the Dongmen sacred clan, or regardless of whether it was diabolism or the orthodox sects, there would only be one outcome if they offended him. Death.
Chapter 499, Backyard on Fire and Equipment Refining. Don't take my arm and stop asking me to marry you. I hope you can write down the contents of the Fire God's secret book in these next few days. Wang Xian was walking with Ajaya at night on the road of Shangjing. He reminded her again when they were about to enter Sui clan's territory. Ajaya threw him a cold look. What? Is this a warning to me? Seeing how she acted, Wang Xian was helpless. I don't want my girlfriends to misunderstand. Humph, that's your business. As she spoke, her eyes were suddenly red. Hey, can you stop acting like this? It feels like I'm bullying you, Wang Xian hurriedly told her upon seeing her look. Are you trying to deny it? I followed you here and gave you all the treasures. You can kick me away any time now. If I write out the contents in the Fire God's secret book, will you ask me to scram? Ajaya stared at him with tears welling up in her eyes as she glowered at him coldly. No, no. Forget it. Do whatever you want, I won't chase you away. Wang Xian went soft-hearted upon seeing her look. A peerless budding realm goddess who had obtained the legacy of the fire god had followed him all the way to the foreign land. If he continued to bully her, Wang Xian was really not a man. That's better. I don't need you to mind my business. You can't chase me away either. Ajaya lifted her chin slightly and walked off. You should make a turn over here. You don't even know your way, why are you taking the lead? Wang Xian shook his head. He did not understand women. Dragon King. Upon seeing the arrival of Wang Xian, the people from Sui clan greeted him respectfully. I'll go over myself. Wang Xian waved at the disciples of Sui clan on the way over and headed for the sacred mountain of Sui clan. Ajaya, on his heels as she regained her mood, looked around the Sahyuan with curiosity. Wang Xian is here? Sui Huang's voice was heard even before Wang Xian stepped in. It looks like your injuries have almost recovered. Wang Xian walked in with a broad smile. Xiao Xian. Guan Shuqing trotted over with a beaming face as she tugged his arm. However, her smile disappeared when she saw the girl tagging along behind him. She studied her curiously. No, calling her a girl was inappropriate. She looked more like a goddess. Guan Shuqing had seen foreign babes before, but it was her first time seeing babes like Ajaya, who was such a ravishing beauty. Tall and perfect figure, wearing a crown, and a truncheon in her hand. She had a special demeanor. Guan Shuqing had only observed a similar demeanor on Sun Lingxiu before. Unlike Sun Lingxiu, who was pure light, Ajaya was more like a proud fire that one could not help but take a few more looks at. Who is she? Guan Shuqing was on her guard as she asked Wang Xian softly. Her eyes were locked on his. A friend from Dubai. Her name is Ajaya. Wang Xian's lips were trembling as he replied solemnly to Guan Shuqing. Friend? What friend? Just an ordinary friend. Don't imagine things, Shuqing. Don't you believe me? Wang Xian forced a smile on his face. Ajaya, who could not understand what they were talking about, smiled at Guan Shuqing. Hello. Guan Shuqing nodded to Ajaya doubtfully. Sui Huang walked out and asked Wang Xian with a beaming face, Wang Xian, did you reap anything this time? Not bad, you don't have to worry about the art of cultivation. Wang Xian chuckled. With Guan Shuqing in his arms, they walked over. Seeing that his arm had already grown out, he said, I didn't expect you to recover quite fast. I consumed a lot of treasures. Sui Huang sat at one side and gestured to Wang Xian. Wang Xian said something to Ajaya, and she sat on one side. Her. Seeing the truncheon in Ajaya's hand, Sui Huang slightly frowned.
Sui Huang, what's the situation now in the underworld? Asked Wang Xian to Sui Huang while sipping his tea. Sui Huang shifted his attention as he slightly pondered. With a sigh, he said, it's very complicated. Everyone is on their own now. Wang Xian slightly knit his eyebrows. Is diabolism very strong? Yes, indeed. Sui Huang nodded. Diabolism, who kept a low profile for 50 years, erupted with daunting strength all of a sudden. Emperor Qi of Diabolism is going to challenge Nie Wushuang, the sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect. Diabolism is frantically avenging the enemies of 50 years ago. 5 first-class forces and 1 sacred sect are down. The unparalleled experts from Remains even warned me not to take part in the grudges between Dongmen clan and them yesterday. Otherwise, they will bring a bloodbath to Sui clan. They are as overbearing as they were 50 years ago. Donghua Sacred Sect will be joining hands with some sacred sects these next few days to either suppress, wipe them out, or make peace with diabolism. Of course, that will depend on the war between Emperor Qi and Nie Wushuang. Wang Xian nodded slowly. How many sacred sects are involved now? 6 sacred sects and 1 sacred clan. 80% of the strength in the underworld is involved, and this is not taking the annihilated Xingling sect into account, Sui Huang said with a sullen face. 7 saint-class forces. Now, we only have 8 sacred sects and 4 sacred clans in the underworld. And yet, we have 7 forces involved in it. Wang Xian exhibited a grave expression. Sui Huang, do you intend to stay out of this? Now, it's not up to me to decide. But if Sui clan, Shao clan, and Dragon sect can join hands together, it might be worth a try. Sui Huang said slowly. No, I'm not going to get involved. They can kill whoever they like. It has got nothing to do with Dragon sect. Wang Xian chuckled. You only have 50 disciples in Dragon sect. It's easy for you to stay out of this, but not Sui clan. Sui Huang sighed as he revealed a worried face. There were 2 lineups at the moment, Diabolism and Orthodox sections. Joining Diabolism was out of the question. But he did not want to join the Orthodox sects either. In order to annihilate Diabolism 50 years ago, there were no more than 100 inborn experts who remained in the entire underworld. If things turned out to be the same as before, it would be a bloodbath again. I wonder what Diabolism thinks. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. What do you think? They are nourishing themselves through fights with fresh blood, corpses, and bloodlust. All these things empower the strong ones. They are just a bunch of devils who have no conscience and aren't afraid of death. Sui Huang said with a sullen face. They did not want to participate in this war, nor did they want Diabolism to win. If they won, it would be darkness for them all in the future. This was a difficult choice and also a helpless one. Come and look for me if you're in trouble. Upon seeing Sui Huang's troubled expression, Wang Xian spoke to him with a broad smile. Regardless of whether it was God or devil, they would only become corpses if they made enemies with him. Chapter 500, Equipment Refining and Backyard on Fire. Walking out from Sui Huang's room, Wang Xian sent Ajaya to another room immediately before bringing Guan Shuqing to another room. With time on her side, Guan Shuqing started examining Wang Xian and Ajaya. Wang Xian had long thought of an explanation. He illustrated Ajaya as a patient that required him to treat her over a few days. Moreover, he told Guan Shuqing that Ajaya was the Princess of Dubai and the Princess of Dubai wouldn't marry a man from a foreign country. Guan Shuqing accepted his explanation with doubts. TSK. In the room a short distance away, Ajaya faced Wang Xian's room and snorted. He's bullying me because I don't understand Mandarin. Learning a language is an easy task for me. As she mumbled to herself, she dialed a number and soon opened up a video conference. Several professional Mandarin professors appeared before the screen and started teaching her Mandarin. To the astonishment of these professors, Ajaya quickly mastered one after another phrase. Morning. The next day morning, Ajaya was at the door of her room when Wang Xian walked out of his room. She was wearing an earpiece. When she saw Wang Xian, she greeted, "Morning." "Huh?" Wang Xian was taken aback. "Good morning. How did you?" "Xiao Xian, my luggage." At this moment, Guan Shuqing's voice disrupted his words. Wang Xian looked at Ajaya, baffled. She had reverted her attention to her phone while he helped to carry Guan Shuqing's luggage. "It's time to go. We will be heading back to Rivertown directly," Wang Xian shouted at Ajaya, who was looking at her phone screen and wearing an earpiece. Ajaya nodded her head and followed behind them. Guan Shuqing was curious as to why Ajaya was constantly looking at her phone. However, she did not ask her. She still trusted Xiao Xian deeply. Moreover, Xiao Xian had explained a lot to her yesterday. Wang Xian was glad to see Ajaya acting in this manner. They took the plane and left for Rivertown. On the plane, Ajaya was still looking at her phone and didn't say a word. Dragon King. When they arrived at Rivertown, Mo Yuan drove the car over and greeted him respectfully. Since the dragon sect had been established, they had not been addressing Wang Xian as young master. Instead, they called him the Dragon King directly. "Huh? Have all the things arrived?" Wang Xian asked Mo Yuan. "They have arrived and all the treasures have been moved to the floating island." "All right." Wang Xian nodded his head. "Xiao Xian, today's Saturday. Qingyue and the rest are waiting for you in the villa," Guan Shuqing said to Wang Xian. "Although we were only separated for a few days, it felt like 3 years." Wang Xian smiled sheepishly. "Look at how happy you are." Guan Shuqing rolled her eyes at him. Soon the car left the airport and drove rapidly towards the villa. "We are getting out here." Seeing Lan Qingyue, Sun Lingxiu and Xiao Yu waiting by the doors, Wang Xian said this to Ajaya. Ajaya nodded her head. She removed the earpiece and put her phone away. From her, a strong sense of confidence was exhibited instantly. "Xiao Xian. Brother." Lan Qingyue, Xiao Yu and the rest immediately shouted. Wang Xian smiled upon seeing them and opened up his arms. This is..." Lan Qingyue noticed Ajaya, who was following behind Wang Xian, instantly. She frowned and asked about her curiously. Any woman would feel a strong sense of danger from Ajaya. "She is from Dubai. I'm Hertha Mohakaban Sesid Al Ajaya. You guys can call me Ajaya. I'll be Wang Xian's future wife." "You are calling Xiao Xian brother?" 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is just right. In Dubai, a man can have at most 4 wives. Guan Shuqing was smiling and prepared to introduce her as the Princess of Dubai and as a patient of Wang Xian. However, before she could finish her words, Ajaya's voice resounded. She spoke in perfect Mandarin. As Ajaya spoke, she stepped forward and held on to Wang Xian's arm. She tilted her head and asked, "How's my Mandarin, Xiao Xian? Aren't I incredible? I've spent a night mastering Mandarin. Are you surprised? Are you happy? Are you surprised? Are you happy?" When Wang Xian heard Ajaya speak Mandarin, his face stiffened. Looking at Ajaya, who wrapped her arms around his with a smile, his body couldn't help but shiver. Guan Shuqing's face instantly stiffened and sank. Lan Qingyue's smile had also disappeared. 2 furious glares fell on Wang Xian. Wang Xian could feel dense killing intent and saw Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue clenching their fists tightly. Scumbag! Didn't you tell me she's your patient? Guan Shuqing glowered at Wang Xian and her eyes were a little red. This matter isn't like you. You are still trying to lie to me. Guan Shuqing gave him a harsh stare before storming into the villa furiously. Lan Qingyue had also turned as cold as ice as she followed Guan Shuqing into the villa. Xiao Yu was in shock over what had happened. Sun Lingxiu was also caught by surprise. She looked at Ajaya, smiled at her, and hesitated for a moment before returning to her room. Brother, you are doing things you shouldn't. Everything's on fire now. Xiao Yu stared at him before running into the villa. Haze. Wang Xian heaved a long sigh. I can accept you having 4 wives. It wouldn't do if you had more. At this moment, Ajaya, who was beside Wang Xian, remarked suddenly. Wang Xian felt like his head almost exploded. Hey, miss, can you tell me about the art of equipment refining in the Fire God's secret book first? Miss? Xiao Xian, do you think I should get a Chinese name in the future? Ajaya was baffled, tilted her head and said, oh right. Those girls seemed a little angry a while ago. I'll go comfort them in a while. I believe they will accept me. Wang Xian looked to the sky. His expression had changed greatly as he walked towards the villa. I had not expected him to have a mistress outside. He's a scumbag. He's the biggest scumbag. If she was Sister Lingxiu, I still could accept it. But he brought a foreign girl back and lied to me, saying that she's his patient. The moment he entered the house, he heard Guan Shuqing crying. Wang Xian's body stiffened, and he turned to glare at Ajaya before entering. When Xiao Yu saw her walking in, she immediately gestured to Wang Xian and asked him not to come any closer. Wang Xian rubbed his nose and went to Ajaya. Tell me about the art of equipment refining. Sure. I have prepared it for you. Ajaya took out a few pieces of paper and handed them to him. Oh, right. I believe you have seen what happened a while ago. Please don't give me any more troubles. Wang Xian looked at Ajaya and said solemnly. Leave this to me. If they can accept me, I'll stay by your side. If they can't, I will leave. Will this do? Ajaya looked solemnly at him suddenly. All right. Chapter 501, Alliance of the Orthodox Sects. Sigh. Wang Xian heaved a sigh and shook his head while looking at the villa before he headed outside. A man has a home that he cannot return to. How sad it is. But he had brought it upon himself. One must bear certain consequences of having his harem. Wang Xian walked to the sea. With a swift movement, he hovered to the floating island. It had been some time, and the construction of the island was almost complete. The buildings were all up and running. Treasure vault, elixir refining room, and now there would be a new addition, refinery room. Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face when he came to the treasure vault and saw a truckload of treasures. There were more than 300 inborn spiritual weapons, but all of them were, however, fire-attributed spiritual weapons, which were not practical to Dragonians. In addition to the myriad of weapons, the rest were fire-attributed materials. Using the fire-attributed material to make weapons would not necessarily refine only fire-attributed weapons. Still, it would require materials of other attributes to neutralize it. Wang Xian was unsure of the details. Wang Xian took out the art of blacksmith from the Fire God's secret book that Ajaya had passed to him. From the level 13 spiritual weapon in Ajaya's hand and over 300 inborn spiritual weapons, one could tell that Fire God Hephaestus' forte was refining equipment. His skill in smithing was definitely top-notch. The art of blacksmith was a long-lost skill in the underworld. As such, all inborn spiritual weapons were extremely precious, so much so that even sacred sects would treat them as valuable items. If Wang Xian could smith out different inborn spiritual weapons, he could arm Dragonians to the teeth. In addition, this could also enhance the level of Dragon Palace. Refine weapons using low-grade material to make high-level items. Wang Xian read the first line of the note and continued. Dragon King. At this time, Mo Yuan's voice was heard from the outside. Her. He frowned slightly. What's the matter? Donghua Sacred Sect sent someone here to invite the Dragon Sect to join the alliance of the Orthodox sections. They urged you to attend as all the sacred sects, sacred clans, and first-class forces from the underworld will be present, said Mo Yuan. Alliance of the Orthodox sects. When is it? Wang Xian knit his eyebrow slightly. Tomorrow at noon at the Donghua ritual grounds. Mo Yuan answered. Call upon some Dragonians to go with me. After some consideration, Wang Xian instructed Mo Yuan. Yes, Dragon King. The alliance of the Orthodox sects was equivalent to the underworld joining hands. It seems like the war between good and evil is inevitable. Wang Xian frowned slightly as there would be many unparalleled experts participating in the war. Since inborn experts were the main strength in this war, their deaths made perfect sense. That included unparalleled experts. For those who had yet to become inborns, they would be on their own to stay alive. Let's check them out. Wang Xian stood up and walked out. Dragon King. Soon, Mo Yuan brought 20 Dragonians to Wang Xian and greeted him with respect. Where is the Donghua ritual grounds? Asked Wang Xian to Mo Yuan. They are located at the North Mountain, which is the most central spot in the country. We need 8 hours to reach there. Get ready, and we'll set off soon, said Wang Xian to Mo Yuan. With quick movements, he flitted to the villa. When he reached the entrance of the villa, he tiptoed in. Brother. Seeing Wang Xian coming in, Xiao Yu quickly walked to him. What's the situation now? Asked Wang Xian in a low voice. What else? Xiao Yu rolled her eyes at him. In the past, I still thought of finding a boyfriend like you. But now, you might as well kill me to have a boyfriend like you. I'm heading out later. Donghua Sacred Sect is organizing an alliance of the Orthodox sects, so I'm going over later. Wang Xian asked Xiao Yu, are you going too? Yes, Master just called me to go over. I heard that Donghua Sacred Sect was not only the one leading, but there are also another 6 forces turning up. No one dared to reject. Don't go. Stay at home and watch over them for me, Wang Xian peered at the rooms and said to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu rolled her eyes. Then I'll inform my master. Wang Xian nodded, stroked Xiao Yu's hair, and giggled. Xiao Yu threw him a dirty look. The 2 sisters-in-law are infuriated. You better go out and stay clear for the time being. Okay. Wang Xian smiled and nodded as he headed outside. Donghua Sacred Sect was the strongest sacred sect in the underworld, and it was recognized as the most powerful force. Nia Wushuang, sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect, was the ultimate expert in the underworld. Donghua Sacred Sect was the one who took the lead in establishing the alliance of the Orthodox sects against diabolism 50 years ago. Today, the alliance of the Orthodox sects was taking form once again. When Wang Xian led 20 Dragonians near Donghua ritual grounds, it was night time. Donghua ritual grounds were situated in the most central region in China, which was next to a small county. Are you all from Dragon Sect? Just as they entered the small town, several young men in yellow outfits walked over and cupped their fists as they asked. Yes. Mo Yuan, standing by the side, nodded to the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect. Please follow us into the mountain. We have prepared your accommodation. The young man gestured to them with a beam. Sure. Wang Xian nodded and went into the mountain of Donghua Sacred Sect. Several young men were staring at Wang Xian with curiosity. One of them hesitated before he said, I presume you're the Dragon King. Wang Xian nodded nonchalantly. Seeing his lukewarm reaction, these young men raised their eyebrows and kept quiet. Hoo-hoo. Just then, 8 people hovered through the air and entered the range of mountains ahead. Let's hover over. Wang Xian gazed at the road ahead, which was several kilometers away before they could reach their destination. Given the speed of these young men, they needed to walk for another 10 minutes at least. Dragon King, only the inborn experts of our sect can hover in the air. Flying is prohibited for other sect members, a young man explained to Wang Xian with a broad smile. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and said impassively, Donghua Sacred Sect doesn't respect their guests. Ha! Those young men chuckled upon hearing his comment. They had faint pride surfaced on their faces. Donghua rules supreme in the underworld. This is our rule, and the respect shown to Donghua Sacred Sect from the guests. Respect? A hint of disdain flashed in Wang Xian's eyes while he did not utter any words. Seeing Wang Xian keeping mum, those young men deepened their smiles and lifted their chins while leading them into the mountains of Donghua Sacred Sect. Towering mountains with flying cranes and cries of the ancient apes. Majestic buildings stood among the mountain range while water tumbled down from the mountain in the center just like a wonderland. Chapter 502, Lord of Sea Serpent Island. Everyone, this way please. A few young men gestured to Wang Xian and the group and pointed to a mountain peak as they spoke. This is one of our mountains used for welcoming guests. Everyone in the dragon sect can stay in it for the night. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly as he headed in. The group of young men didn't follow. They smiled and watched Wang Xian and the rest walk away. How incredible! That 20-year-old teenager is a Dan realm existence and created a sacred sect alone, a young man commented with envy. TSK. He just got darned lucky, the other young man by the side remarked with jealousy. Let's go. Tomorrow, an alliance between the orthodox sects will be formed. In the near future, we will have to engage diabolism in battle. At that time, please be careful, everyone. Under the leadership of Donghua Sacred Sect, diabolism will definitely be easily annihilated. A group of young men discussed enthusiastically as they walked away. Wang Xian arrived at the tallest structure on the guest peak. He looked at the yard from the door before heading into his room. Donghua Sacred Sect is really something. They have a dozen-plus guest peaks just for welcoming their guests. A giant mountain sect was established over hundreds of mountains in this area. How majestic! When Wang Xian entered the yard, he looked ahead of him. Raucous discussions reverberated from below. Wang Xian saw various sects entering with many of their disciples in awe of the mountain sect of Donghua Sacred Sect. Even disciples from sacred sects were shocked and they entered the grounds of Donghua Sacred Sect. Sui clan was incredible and had hundreds of Sihiyuan. However, they were nothing compared to the hundreds of mountains that Donghua Sacred Sect occupied. Donghua Mountain Range is indeed worthy of the name of the strongest force in the underworld. Below the mountain where Wang Xian and the group were, some disciples of other sects exclaimed in shock. Dong! 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 At this moment, the sounds of a bell ringing reverberated across the Donghua Sacred Sect. The bell could be heard from all corners of Donghua Sacred Sect. At this moment, disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect came out from their mountain peaks. Each mountain peak had a huge training field before it. Their disciples were practicing diligently in the training fields. A soft roar reverberated across the sky of Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian stood on the mountain peak and looked ahead. He squinted his eyes and was a little shocked. The number of disciples in Donghua Sacred Sect is a little beyond my expectations. 7,000 to 8,000 disciples are distributed over 40 to 50 mountains. Moreover, their strength is on average stronger than most of the underworld. Even the area beneath a waterfall a long distance away was filled with disciples training. Each and every disciple was proud of their sect. Wang Xian looked on for a little while longer before returning to his room. He retrieved the paper that had the art of weapon refining written on it and continued reading. Ding! Comprehended the art of weapon refining. When he finished reading the entire illustration, the voice of the system resounded in his mind. Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. It was just as he had expected. Name, Wang Xian. Race, 5 elements divine dragon, able to transform into a human. Level, 8, dragon energy, 19, 634, 210/100, 000000. Superpower, dominate the marine animals, ability to rule any marine animals that are lower than your own level. Devour any form of marine animals, for extraction of dragon energy. 5 elements control. Art of cultivation, divine dragon transformation. Arts of refining elixir pills, alchemist apprentice, refine all elixir pills with the origin source flame. Arts of equipment refining, blacksmith apprentice, refine all equipment with the origin source flame. Refine all equipment with the origin source flame. It is just like the arts of refining elixir pills. Wang Xian was exhilarated. He knew clearly how insane his arts of refining elixir pills were. If the arts of equipment refining were as incredible, it would be a piece of cake for him to craft inborn spiritual weapons in the future. I've got to give it a try after getting back, and equip the entire dragon sect to the teeth. Excitement gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes. The night passed quickly. On the next morning, Wang Xian went down the guest peak at around 10 in the morning. As compared to the day before, Donghua Sacred Sect was livelier today. Several powerful sects and families from the underworld were touring the place or conversing. Wang Xian looked around and led the group of Dragonians to walk around the place. That is Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. He's the Dragon King. All the disciples behind him are the disciples of Dragon Sect. I have heard that they are young. Now that I have seen it with my own eyes, they are really unreasonably young. How great would it be to have such incredible strength at such a young age? Annihilating the 2 saint-class forces, Medical Saint Sect and Xiao Clan. The rise of the Dragon Sect was built upon the corpses of those 2 saint-class forces. The Dragon King is really handsome. To stand at the pinnacle of the underworld at such a young age, he's definitely Prince Charming in the eyes of the thousands of ladies in the underworld. When the disciples of various sects saw Wang Xian, they discussed softly. Wang Xian heard the comments from his surroundings and chuckled. He walked to the large cauldron in the middle and started curiously observing the materials used to make this cauldron. Level 10 material. What a shame that this is just an ordinary cauldron. The creator didn't know anything about equipment refining. Please make way. Please make way. At this moment, shouts could be heard. SSS. That is. Who would have thought he would be here? Oh gosh. Donghua Sacred Sect really has its weight in the underworld. Now that every sacred clan and sacred sect is here, he's here too. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island has a feud with the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. The Dragon Sect almost killed the son of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island previously. The young Lord of Sea Serpent Island is also following behind. Raucous discussions broke out. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and ruthlessness gleamed in his eyes. The previous time, that young Lord of Sea Serpent Island wanted to kill him. After he had managed to escape, Wang Xian asked Mo Qinglong to find the location of Sea Serpent Island. In the end, they couldn't find any information. Father, there they are. It is that guy. It is them. At this moment, from the back, the young Lord of Sea Serpent Island looked around proudly as he immersed himself in the fearful and respectful gazes of the crowd. When he heard the surrounding crowd discussing softly, he looked over and his eyes were filled with anger. He turned to his father and spoke with killing intent beaming in his eyes. Hai Jiao had the looks of a middle-aged man and stood at approximately 2 meters tall. Two huge horns grew from his back and every step of his would bring strong water flowing around his body. He was just like a giant beast walking on the land. When Hai Jiao heard his son, he turned and looked towards where Wang Xian was. Wang Xian also turned his head over and stared coldly at Hai Jiao. Hai Jiao didn't say a word and walked directly towards Wang Xian. The dozen-odd Donghua sacred sect disciples that were following frowned and immediately rushed over. Other than that, there were 10 old men behind Hai Jiao. Each and every one of them had savage killing intent circling them as though they were beasts. They were all staring at Wang Xian and didn't bother to hide their killing intent. You are the so-called Dragon King. Hai Jiao walked to Wang Xian. His face was covered with hair and emotionless, and he questioned Wang Xian in a deep voice. Wang Xian stared at Hai Jiao and smirked. Are you here with your son to apologize? Chapter 503, How dare insignificant ants intervene? Apologize? You really think too highly of yourself. Hai Jiao glowered at Wang Xian coldly. You injured my son and killed my men. I was busy these past few days, and didn't have the time to kill you. Is that so? Wang Xian curled his lips. I sent someone to look for your island, but I didn't find it. If I knew where your island was, both of you wouldn't be here today. Boom. Boom. Tit for tat. Wang Xian and Hai Jiao stared daggers at each other. A surge of aura exuded from them. As the two clouds of aura collided, the surrounding space seemed to be distorted. However, their aura was not revealed in any way. When experts advanced to a certain level, they could perfectly control the aura exuded. When the two auras knocked against each other, none of the people around them noticed that the contest had begun. Hai Jiao was staring at Wang Xian with astonishment as he narrowed his eyes. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island clenched his fist and stared at Wang Xian furiously. But he dared not act insolently as Wang Xian was a compelling expert. He knew the power of a Dan realm expert, but he had no fear, as his father would be slaughtering him. Gulp. A confrontation. Will they break out into a fight? The second strongest expert in the underworld is facing the youngest unparalleled expert from the new dragon sect. If they were to battle, it would be another battle of the ages. Be it Dragon King or Hai Jiao, the two of them are almost invincible. They are the brazen existences. Unless one of them admits defeat or dies, they will need to tough it out. Seeing Wang Xian and Hai Jiao gazing at each other coldly, the surrounding atmosphere was frozen as the people around them were shocked to see this. Some of the experts from sacred sects also looked over with flickering eyes. Lord Hai Jiao, we should go over, some of the young disciples of Donghua sacred sect hesitantly and cautiously said to Hai Jiao upon noticing the situation. Dragon King, please excuse us and let us through. A young disciple of Donghua sacred sect lowered his chin and said to Wang Xian plainly. This disciple was one of those young men who had received Wang Xian and his gang yesterday. Wang Xian looked at that young man with an eyebrow raised. You guys walk to my side and expect me to give way. Dragon King, Lord Hai Jiao is the VIP that Donghua sacred sect invited. You're in our territory, so please give way. The young man craned his neck up and told Wang Xian this before he turned to Hai Jiao and revealed a flattering smile. Ants. Wang Xian swung his arm and released traces of killing intent in his eyes. Upon seeing Wang Xian making his move, Hai Jiao remained unwavering except for his slightly lifted eyebrow. How dare you, an insignificant ant, intervene in the expert's affairs? Under the shocked and astonished eyes of that young man, Wang Xian grabbed his neck and stared coldly at him. Cough. You. The young man flushed with redness when his neck was seized. He glared at Wang Xian with a dreadful expression. You, this is Donghua. Bam! Wang Xian jerked his arm, and an explosion was heard around the limbs and elixir field of that young man. Arg! The young man let out a cry of horror, which resounded in Donghua sacred sect. I wonder how the mighty Donghua sacred sect disciplines their disciples. Such trash actually tried to taunt experts. Wang Xian waved his hand and hurled the young man out. Arg, no. My limbs, my elixir field. You actually crippled me. You crippled me. The young man who was thrown to the floor spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt his body shake with terror. His body was huddled up and his eyes were full of despair. His elixir field and 4 limbs had been completely destroyed. SSS. Dragon King actually crippled a young disciple of Donghua sacred sect. He's completely crippled. Besides, it's hard to heal injuries caused by such an expert. He's finished totally. He's asking for his own death. How can a young disciple of Donghua sacred sect interfere in the conflict between the Dragon King and Hai Jiao? Both of them are Dan realm experts. A fellow who is yet to be an inborn actually intervened in experts' matters. He's such an idiot. An ant is dreaming of interfering in conflicts between 2 unparalleled experts. He should count himself lucky for not getting himself killed. Maybe that disciple of Donghua sacred sect did not expect that the Dragon King would cripple him straight away. The surrounding crowd watched coldly as the disciple of Donghua sacred sect rolled and screamed in pain on the floor. Thinking that you are the disciple of Donghua sacred sect, and you can poke your nose in experts' matters? It would be okay if the other party was just an inborn expert. But you're digging your own grave by poking your nose in the conflict between the second strongest expert in the underworld and the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. In addition, you were still ignorant, trying to please Hai Jiao, who has made an enemy of the Dragon King. How can a disciple who is not even an inborn provoke such an unparalleled expert? Senior. Several disciples of Donghua sacred sect stiffened up as they ran to that disciple with panic. An ant has no right to talk. Hai Jiao swept his gaze at the young man before he glowered at Wang Xian. But I'll slay you for hurting my son and killing my men. Hee, rest assured that you guys will not live long. Wang Xian looked at Hai Jiao and the young lord of Sea Serpent Island with a broad smile and unconcealed killing intent in his eyes. Great, I look forward to it. Ha! Hai Jiao chortled and walked inside with an icy cold face. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island threw a death stare at Wang Xian before he followed behind his father. Wang Xian chuckled. He took a glance at the young man who was rolling in pain on the floor before he walked to one side. Several disciples from Donghua sacred sect fixed their gazes at Wang Xian and gritted their teeth in fear. What's going on? At this time, 2 middle-aged men flitted over with the daunting aura of inborn experts. One looked at the ancestral disciple on the floor and asked this with a grave expression. It was the Dragon King from Dragon Sect who did it. He crippled Senior Shue's 4 limbs and elixir field, a disciple replied with a dreadful look. Dragon King. The 2 middle-aged men frowned as they placed their arms on the young man with a darkened expression. It's completely gone. His life is finished. Why did that Dragon King cripple him? Asked the middle-aged man with a gloomy expression. Because Senior Shui tried to intervene in the conflict between Hai Jiao and the Dragon King. As a result, the Dragon King crippled him straight away. A young man wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Intervene in their matters? The 2 middle-aged men had a change in their expressions as they fixed their eyes on the fallen young man. You aren't even an inborn. Yet, you tried to interfere with 2 unparalleled experts. Are you seeking death? Chapter 504, Donghua Rules Supreme. The young disciple from Donghua Sacred Sect lay listlessly before the 2 attendants of Donghua Sacred Sect as despair overtook him. He had not expected the Dragon King to cripple him directly. Over the last 2 days, he had received various sacred clans and sacred sects. They were all courteous towards him. Therefore, he had thought that the Dragon King wouldn't do anything to him even if he was trying to get on the good books of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island. However, He was too naive. He was naive to the extent of challenging the authority of an expert. No matter what, he's not showing any respect to us when he cripples our disciple in our sect. He really has no regard for us. When the two middle-aged men saw their young disciple on the floor, their faces sank and they mumbled, "Report this incident up." The two of them moved and left immediately. As for the young disciple on the floor, he was carried away by the other disciples. He's indeed the Dragon King. No matter which sect you are from, you will still be killed as long as you offend him. Around them, the disciples of other sects couldn't help but sigh after witnessing the event. Before the Dragon sect was established, the Dragon King was already known to kill disciples of other sacred sects. The Dragon sect was even established on the corpses of two saint-class forces. The Dragon King wouldn't care if you were from the Donghua sacred sect or if you were the second strongest man in the underworld. Dong! 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 At this moment, the sound of the bell rang. The disciples of Donghua sacred sect guided all the sects towards the Donghua ritual ground. Everyone from Dragon sect, please follow me. A female disciple of Donghua sacred sect walked to Wang Xian and spoke fearfully. In less than 10 minutes, the news of the Dragon King from Dragon sect crippling a disciple of Donghua sacred sect was known by all other disciples. Hearing about the wretched state of their senior, they couldn't help but feel a chill running down their spines. An attendant and a female disciple were sent to receive the Dragon sect. Wang Xian nodded his head, followed beside the female disciple and headed towards the Donghua ritual ground. Donghua ritual ground was 2,000 to 3,000 meters away and one had to cross 10 mountains to reach it. An incomparably huge ritual ground appeared before them. On the other end, there was a huge lake. In the middle of the lake, there was a stone statue that was over 20 meters tall. That's a stone statue of our Donghua Supreme Saint, the founder of Donghua Sacred Sect. The female disciple of Donghua Sacred Sect stole a glance at Wang Xian as she introduced it softly. Donghua Sacred Sect has close to 700 to 800 years of history. Am I right? Wang Xian asked. 873 years to be exact. This year is the 873rd year since the founding of our Donghua Sacred Sect, the female disciple replied with pride. Wang Xian chuckled. All the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect had an innate pride and confidence. Dragon King, please find a spot you like. At the ritual ground, the female disciple pointed to a place that was relatively ahead of the rest. Wang Xian looked across and saw the Sui clan and Shao clan. He immediately walked over with a radiant smile. Beside Sui clan and Shao clan was the Sacred Followers Guild. Brother Wang Xian. When Sui Huang and Shao Quanshan saw Wang Xian walking towards them, they immediately exchanged greetings with him. The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild and their disciples also looked across. Sui clan, Shao clan and the Sacred Followers Guild each had 10 inborn experts that had come. Sui Huang, Old Shao. Have you guys just arrived today? Wang Xian asked with a smile. Yeah. We heard what you did a while ago. You really are a magnet for trouble. Sui Huang shook his head and chuckled. What are your thoughts about the alliance of the orthodox sects after deliberation? Wang Xian chuckled and asked directly. We can't let diabolism take control of the underworld. Therefore, I have discussed with Old Shao and Old Huang. If we can't avoid it, we just have to join in. Sui Huang answered solemnly. Wang Xian nodded his head. When one was in the underworld, not all things could be decided by themselves. Even sacred sects couldn't do as they wished in the face of the battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism. I have a batch of fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons. If you guys are interested, bring inborn level materials to exchange. It would be best if you have devil attribute materials. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before informing them. In the battle between the Dragon sect, Medical Saint sect and Xiao clan previously, the Dragon sect had owed them a favor after they came to their aid. This favor had to be returned. Moreover, the 300+ fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons were too weak for him. Now that he had mastered the arts of equipment refining, he could rely on it if he could get a batch of inborn level materials. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan were taken aback and were shocked. A batch? Regardless, I can equip both of your clans fully. Naturally, this is dependent upon you two having sufficient inborn level materials to exchange. Wang Xian said heartily. Brat, how did you get your hands on so many inborn spiritual weapons? Xiao Quanshan and Sui Huang's eyes beamed with excitement. These were inborn spiritual weapons that they were talking about. Between battles of two inborn experts, the one with the weapon would be certain to win. For a sacred sect, it would be rare to find 3 or 4 inborn spiritual weapons. Do you think I'm like you? Getting almost killed in an overseas trip? Wang Xian looked to Sui Huang and teased him. How dare you, brat? How dare you make fun of me now? Sui Huang stared at him and continued, do you really have that many fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons? Of course. Wang Xian nodded his head and continued, in fact, I have level 11 weapons that are above the inborn level. What? Weapons for Dan realm experts? Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan could feel their breathing getting rapid as they stared fervently at Wang Xian. Bring your stuff to me to exchange. Wang Xian replied with a laugh. The expressions on the two of them changed rapidly. They were thinking hard about what materials they could offer in exchange for weapons they could use. The guild leader of Sacred Followers Guild looked at Wang Xian in shock. The female disciple beside him still pouted and observed Wang Xian with discontent. All right. We will bring the stuff over tomorrow. With inborn spiritual weapons, the losses of our two clans will be substantially lower. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan answered in a hurry. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked around. He saw that over 30 sects had gathered in this place. In the entire field, there were over 10,000 people. No one was weaker than martial artist level 7. One could say that almost 95% of the forces of the underworld had gathered in this place. He looked ahead and saw an elevated platform near the center of the lake. On the elevated platform, there were 100-odd stone benches. No one was sitting there. The people from the Donghua sacred sect are here. At this moment, Wang Xian saw the people of Donghua sacred sect arriving. There were over 1,000 of them. In the middle, there were 4 old men with snow-white hair. One of the old men had a sword-shaped walking stick. 100 people or so walked towards the elevated platform. As they walked over, they were like an army of 1,000 soldiers. From them, one could feel a stifling pressure. Inborn. All of them are inborn experts. Oh gosh, is this the real strength of Donghua sacred sect? They are too strong. In the underworld of China, Donghua rules supreme. Sect leader Nie Wushuang isn't here. Could it be that sect leader Nie Wushuang is getting ready for the big battle in a few days? The surrounding sects were shocked to see the elite experts from the Donghua sacred sect walking forward. 100 inborn experts would match 3 sacred sects. Chapter 505, Mobilize Everyone in Dragon Sect. A line of more than 100 people slowly walked up the central elevated platform. The old man who was holding the sword-shaped walking stick turned around, facing everyone below him. He swept his glance across everyone and revealed a smile at the presence of all the Saint-class forces from the underworld. I, Nie Wuya, will be hosting today's alliance of the Orthodox sects as sect leader Nie Wushuang is in his cultivation, preparing himself for the battle 2 days from now, said the old man slowly. Behind him sat hundreds of experts on stone benches. Among which, Hai Jiao took the middle seat, looking expressionless. None of them spoke. Wang Xian sat in a chair, watching them quietly. In addition to him having a seat, only the Dan realm experts of sacred sects could have a place. The rest of the inborn experts from sacred sects could only stand behind. I'm sure everyone knows about the situation in the underworld now. Diabolism is on the rise, and they have been going around, killing the innocent. They're unorthodox, fearless, gruesome and bloodthirsty. We'll not have peace for as long as diabolism exists. Nya Wuya looked at the people and said slowly. Today, the Donghua sacred sect invited all of you here to form an alliance between all the sects and clans in the underworld. We will eliminate diabolism and restore peace to the underworld. Does anyone have any objection to this alliance of the orthodox sects? If no, the rules remain the same as they were 50 years ago. 50 years ago, every ancestral sect would dispatch their experts, including 70% of the total inborn experts, 50% of their total number of disciples. Would anyone like to voice out anything about this arrangement? Nya Wuya swept his gaze across the ground. The sacred seas of swords will not be participating in the alliance. An old man's voice was heard. The crowd froze briefly before looking over to the source of the voice. An old man was standing straight before the sacred seas of swords. There was a chair beside him, but he did not take it. As he spoke, he was expressionless, with razor-sharp eyes. He had 5 sharpened swords at his back too. Nya Wuya's brows furrowed as he looked at that old man. The old man craned his neck upward and said, "The sacred seas of swords have been living in the sea, and we have rarely stepped into the underworld. As such, you can settle your own business. I'm here personally to make my stand clear just to give face to Donghua sacred sect." Nya Wuya raised his eyebrows slightly. 50 years ago, sacred seas of swords fought with us side by side. Are you going to back out now? Diabolism may not let you guys off. Why should we be afraid of diabolism when we're in the sea? A faint smile surfaced on that old man's face. Gazing at the old man, Nya Wuya remained silent as he cast a look at Hai Jiao beside him. Old Kai, the sacred seas of swords is, after all, a clan in the underworld. This concerns the life and death of the underworld. How can you guys turn your backs on us at this juncture? Hai Jiao stood up slowly and remarked with a smile as he stared at the old man from the sacred seas of swords. With you guys around, insignificant diabolism will be easily annihilated. Sacred seas of swords is staying out of this. That old man looked towards Hai Jiao with a frown. His voice was somewhat cold as he spoke. You can't put it that way. I'm also based in the sea, and diabolism has got nothing to do with me. But since the underworld is in trouble, I feel that all the clans and sects should shoulder the responsibilities together. Otherwise, the peaceful environment that we establish through our arduous effort will be enjoyed by someone else. This is simply unfair. Hai Jiao responded with a broad smile while watching that old man. That's right. The battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism involves everyone and every force. All of us should contribute to this. We used our blood to path a road, and it's not for others to cross it as they wish. Nya Wuya stared at the old man and remarked plainly. Old Kai, in view of the current situation, the entire underworld is like a row of dominoes where one fall affects everyone. To put it bluntly, we're all in the same boat. If someone wants to jump off now, don't ever come back to this boat again. Otherwise, said an old man with a green coat from a sacred sect, Jotian sect. He turned to old Kai of the sacred seas of swords. He did not finish his sentence, but the implied meaning was obvious. We don't know how many losses will we suffer from this war. In the event that we suffer overwhelming losses, wouldn't the sacred sect who did not participate in the battle reap the benefits without lifting a finger? An old man from Dongmen clan threw a cold gaze in the sacred seas of swords direction. Old Kai darkened his expression when he saw 7 Dan realm experts from 7 Saint-class forces staring at him with an unpleasant look. Old Kai, this is the time for the orthodox sects to work together against the common enemy. I hope the sacred seas of swords can join us, said Nya Wuya with a beam as he provided an out for the sacred seas of swords in a timely manner. Radiance flickered in old Kai's eyes. Fine, but we faced a crisis earlier on, and we're only left with dozens of inborn experts. So, we can only send 10 inborn experts. Sure, as long as the number hits 70% of the total inborn experts, it will do. Nya Wuya nodded without expression. He knew very well that this was just an excuse for the sacred seas of swords. But he did not expose this since their sect was situated in the middle of the ocean. Donghua Sacred Sect would not know how many inborn experts they had in the first place. 70% of the strength was just a rough estimation. Sacred Seas of Swords will send 10 inborn experts. The Donghua Sacred Sect will be sending 70 inborn experts, 4 Dan Realm experts, and 4,000 disciples, said Nya Wuya slowly, taking the lead. 4 Dan Realm experts. Everyone gasped at the number. 4 Dan Realm experts. It's the Donghua Sacred Sect indeed. Dongmen Clan, 20 inborn experts. Dark Sect, 20 inborn experts. Sui Clan, 20 inborn experts. Shao Clan, 20 inborn experts. Heavenly Sound Sect, 20 inborn experts. All the sacred sects were unaware of the numbers of inborn experts each sect had. 20 inborn experts might have been less than 70%, but it was close enough. With several sacred sects consecutively reporting 20 inborn experts, everyone followed suit with an unspoken understanding. Nya Wuya nodded his head with satisfaction upon hearing the numbers reported by various sacred clans and sections. Then he slowly fixed his gaze on Wang Xian, who had been keeping mum. This must be the recently emerging dragon sect. It's considered to be unprecedented in history for a dragon king to possess such strength at a young age. Medical Saint Sect, whose elixir pills marked the foundation to our victory 50 years ago, has been annihilated by Dragon Sect. Luckily, we still have the disciples of Dragon Sect around. During the Supreme Talents contest, disciples of Dragon Sect triumphed over 2 outstanding disciples of Diabolism. Since Dragon Sect is filled with compelling experts, I think your sect can contribute more for the underworld by sending the entire Dragon Sect, as there aren't any average disciples in the sect either. What do you think? Nya Wuya looked at Wang Xian and asked him this with a broad smile. Oh. Upon hearing Nya Wuya, Wang Xian raised an eyebrow with coldness flashing in his eyes. Chapter 506, What has Diabolism got to do with me? I have a question. For this alliance of the orthodox sects to eliminate Diabolism, how are we going to act? Who will be issuing instructions, or will it be based on the consensus of a group of Dan Realm experts? Wang Xian looked at Nya Wuya and asked plainly. I wonder if this brother has heard of the saying, Donghua rules supreme in China's underworld. This elimination of Diabolism would naturally be under the leadership of our Donghua Sacred Sect. Moreover, considering the strength that our Donghua Sacred Sect is mobilizing, it shouldn't be an absurd demand for us to lead, right? Nya Wuya answered as though it was just a natural order to expect. Why are you asking my dragon sect to mobilize all our strength then? Wang Xian looked at Nya Wuya and questioned him coldly. Nya Wuya raised an eyebrow at Wang Xian and said with a smile, this is mainly in consideration of the suppression the experts from the Dragon Sect could have on Diabolism. Next, if the Medical Saint Sect was still around, our battle with Diabolism would be a lot easier. Now that the Dragon Sect has annihilated the Medical Saint Sect, it's only reasonable that you guys make up for it. Moreover, the Dragon Sect has no ordinary disciples. Other sects and families will be mobilizing 500 to 600 of them and maybe even 1,000. Asking you guys to send 50 people isn't unreasonable at all. Hee hee. Upon hearing Nya Wuya's explanation, Wang Xian chuckled in contempt. He stood up and spoke loudly. You should know about this too. Our Dragon Sect has no ordinary disciples and has just 50 inborn experts. In that case, why should I join the alliance of the orthodox sects and accept the commands of your Donghua sacred sect? As Wang Xian spoke, he looked across everyone on the elevated stage. With the 50 unborn experts of the dragon sect, who dares to offend us in the underworld? Would diabolism dare? Even if they did, so what? Is my dragon sect afraid? In the underworld, regardless of whether the orthodox sects rule or diabolism rules, what has it got to do with my dragon sect? Regardless of whether it's diabolism or the orthodox sects, none of you could affect our dragon sect. You want our dragon sect to mobilize all our strength and listen to your orders? What gives you the guts to even think of it? Wang Xian chuckled and stared at Nie Wuya. As he spoke, he ensured that every word was clear to everyone. Ordering his dragon sect. How dare he? This. When the surrounding forces heard Wang Xian, they were all stunned. Everyone looked at Wang Xian and frowned. I hate people ordering me around. Give me a reason for my dragon sect to join the alliance of the orthodox sects. Wang Xian smiled and issued the last question to Nie Wuya. When Nie Wuya heard Wang Xian, his expression turned solemn. He would have never expected Wang Xian to make such remarks. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he stared at Nie Wuya. His original intention was to not join the so-called alliance of the orthodox sections. Yet, Nie Wuya wanted him to send the entire dragon sect in. This made him even more against the idea. What rights do you guys have to order my dragon sect? Now that all the sects in the underworld are in, is your dragon sect thinking of isolating yourselves away from us? Nie Wuya stared at Wang Xian and asked solemnly. In that case, our dragon sect chooses to go our own way. Wang Xian met Nie Wuya's gaze. Brat. I had thought about killing you, but Brother Nie stopped me and asked me to think of the bigger picture. Now that you are not joining the alliance of the orthodox sects. Suddenly, a voice that was filled with killing intent resounded. Boom! A terrifying aura shot through to the sky. A roar that resembled the fury of water seemed to have come from the sky. Hai Jiao stood up from his seat emotionlessly and stared at Wang Xian. Ha, kill me. If this wasn't the territory of Donghua sacred sect, you would have become a corpse by now. Wang Xian laughed heartily. He looked harshly at Hai Jiao before looking across the crowd from Donghua sacred sect. Nie Wuya stared at Wang Xian as his face sank. I have long heard that the Dragon King of the Dragon sect is exceptionally brazen. Today, this old man has finally witnessed it. Crippling a disciple of our Donghua sacred sect, and now with your brazen claims. You really are young and impulsive. Hee hee. What's with it? I'm already giving Donghua sacred sect face by not killing the disciple. If you guys want to make us an enemy, I wouldn't mind either. Wang Xian licked his lips and stared at all the people from Donghua sacred sect. Arrogance. Really arrogant. That's 100 inborn experts and 4 Dan realm experts. Yet, he dared to make such claims. How ignorant and fearless for him to openly challenge Donghua sacred sect. Now that I have seen it today, he's really arrogant. Too arrogant, in fact, to have the guts to make Donghua sacred sect his enemy. The surrounding sects and families from the underworld looked at Wang Xian and commented. Rumble. Just as Wang Xian completed his words, the 100+ experts from Donghua sacred sect stood up. Terrifying auras shot to the sky as they stared harshly at Wang Xian. As long as the old man before them gave his instructions, they would definitely kill this arrogant brat. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan sighed upon seeing how confrontational Wang Xian was. Now that diabolism is on the rise, could it be that you guys still want to start a battle of sacred sects? Since Dragon Sect isn't willing to join, why do we have to force him? If we push him to the opposite side, it will be greatly harmful to us. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan spoke solemnly. At the same time, they were clearly expressing where they stood. The surrounding sacred sects frowned. A sacred sect not joining wasn't an outcome they wished to see. Since the Dragon King is so arrogant to say that diabolism has nothing to do with him, what else can I, Nyawuya, say? For now, my only advice is to watch your own actions. Nyawuya saw that Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan interrupted and knew that this wasn't the time for internal conflict. Therefore, he remarked coldly. I have a feud with this brat. Today, I'm going to kill him here. Does anyone here have an opinion on that? Hai Jiao shouted across. His eyes were fixed on Wang Xian and brimming with killing intent. I thought of killing you after settling this matter. Since you are looking for death, I will fulfill your wish right now. As he spoke, he moved. Rumble. The sounds of seawater tumbling reverberated across instantly. Hundreds of meters of seawater instantly formed behind Hai Jiao. The depth of the seawater reached over 10 meters and it was suspended in the air. In that case, I shall see who's going to die today. Seeing Hai Jiao attacking, killing intent beamed from Wang Xian's eyes. He moved and met his attacks. Boom! Scorching hot flames blazed the sky. Several hundreds of meters of space around Wang Xian was shrouded in flames. Fire and water instantly filled the sky above the Donghua ritual ground. They are going to fight. They really are going to fight. The second strongest expert of the underworld versus the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. The people from Donghua Sacred Sect didn't say a word. It would seem that they won't be interfering. Doesn't the Dragon King use metal attribute? How did he release fire attribute energy suddenly? What a terrifying aura. The battle between unparalleled experts could really destroy heaven and earth. When Hai Jiao charged across and Wang Xian met his attack, the color of the sky changed instantly. Flames and seawater occupied the entire sky. Nyawuya and the experts from Donghua Sacred Sect looked at Wang Xian, who was emitting endless flames, solemnly. That's definitely the strength of a Dan Realm unparalleled expert. Hai Jiao definitely lives up to his name as the second strongest expert in the underworld. Even I am no match for him. That arrogant brat will definitely die. Nyawuya thought to himself while staring grudgingly at the two men in the air. It would be best if the Lord of Sea Serpent Island could kill this arrogant brat. This will save us from further troubles. Experts from some sacred sects thought to themselves. With regard to Hai Jiao being the second strongest expert in the underworld, they had absolute confidence. Killing a brat shouldn't be a tough issue. Hai Jiao was infuriated as he bellowed with blue radiance exuding from his double horns. An ox horn image that complemented the double horns in his hand slowly surfaced from his body. Boom! The two enormous ox horns hit the dragon claws of Wang Xian. Hai Jiao's body could not help but tremble a little. It's a suit. A suit of inborn spiritual weapons. Wang Xian was astounded to see spiritual weapons complementing each other. It was a suit of spiritual weapons with several items complementing each other such that they could explode double the amount of energy that they'd be able to when they were on their own. Inborn spiritual weapons suit was rare, but compelling. Fourth move, Sea Serpent Absorption. Hai Jiao revealed a malevolent look. As the official second strongest expert in the underworld, he had promised to kill him within 5 moves, and it would not go beyond that. This is the pride of an expert. He raised the double horns as the seawater surrounded him immediately. The sea began to spiral violently like a hurricane. Boom boom. Beside the Donghua ritual ground was a vast lake. The whole lake began to tumble. With the absorption of Hai Jiao, the water from the lake began to spiral up into the air. Sea Serpent Absorption. Gosh, is this the terrifying strength of an unparalleled expert? This is too domineering. Any inborn expert would be trembling in their boots under such insane force. Those inborn experts who have yet to reach the Dan realm were watching the sea serpent absorbing water with horror. It was like seeing a domineering hurricane, a terrifying power from nature. The water spun at a terrifying speed. Eventually, all the water from the sea gathered to form daunting ox horns. Sharp horns. Imagine seeing thousands of sharp horns spinning violently in the air, striking one at high speed. That would be hair-raising. Using energy to condense items. Isn't that what budding realm experts can do? Hai Jiao can actually do that too. Dan realm experts can use energy to draw objects while budding realm experts can condense items. The class of the battle has been raised by a level. He's no doubt the second strongest expert in the underworld. When he reaches Nia Wushuang's age, he probably can advance to budding realm. That Dragon King is god-damned mighty. The thing that could transform into Inferno Divine Dragon should be a spiritual flame ball. The level of a spiritual flame ball is quite daunting. Everyone craned their heads while gazing at that daunting scene from below. All of them gasped. Even Dan realm experts also narrowed their eyes. His means of attack and weapons are all at their peaks such that I could not surpass 4 levels to beat him. Wang Xian studied the daunting sea serpent absorption and took a deep breath. Roar! With a bellow, the dragon ball that was hovering above him shrouded him. On the outside, Wang Xian seemed to be swallowed by the Inferno Divine Dragon. Yet, Wang Xian transformed into a divine dragon at this moment. He stared at Hai Jiao, who was dashing at him with cold eyes. Traces of murderous intent surfaced on his face. I don't need 5 moves to defeat you. Wang Xian's body trembled, drawing a trail of flames in the air while charging at that daunting sea serpent absorption. Seeking your own death. Everyone watched with disdainful looks from below. The 500-meter sea serpent was absorbing the water, condensing all the water energy into razor-sharp horns. In the face of such a domineering attack, one could only dodge. Charging toward it was as good as digging his own grave. Chapter 508, You guys are keeping his life? The outcome is about to be decided. That Dragon King will be killed soon. He brought about his own demise. If the Lord of Sea Serpent Island can maintain the huge 100-meter sea serpent absorption for half an hour, he could destroy an entire city. The might of the sea serpent absorption is even more terrifying than a level 10 typhoon. Any creature that is sucked in will be ground to shreds. Kill the Dragon King. Since he's not joining the alliance of the orthodox sects, he will become a potential issue for us in the future. It's best to kill him now. He is crazy to want to fight the Lord of Sea Serpent Island. On the Donghua ritual ground, the crowd was waiting to see the clash of the huge 8-meter Inferno Divine Dragon and the several 100-meter sea serpent absorption. Subconsciously, many of them were smirking. With regard to the newly established Saint-class Dragon sect and the domineering behavior of the Dragon King, all of the other sacred sects didn't have a good impression. In fact, it was more of fear. They were fearful of the strength of the Dragon sect and the Dragon King. If the Dragon King was to be killed here, they would be glad to witness it. Wang Xian heard the discussion below him and ruthlessness beamed in his eyes. Kill me. He squinted his eyes and flames erupted from his body like a volcano. Die. Sea serpent absorption, sea serpent crush. Hai Jiao stood in the eye of the sea serpent absorption and the horns in his hands were rotating rapidly. He waved his arms and the sea serpent absorption clashed towards Wang Xian. Rumble. Endless explosions erupted as Wang Xian charged into the humongous sea serpent absorption. Flames gathered and formed dragon scales which covered his body. Water energy coalesced and formed sharp objects which resembled cow horns and shot towards Wang Xian's body. Terrifying shockwaves shook the entire sky. The clash of water and fire had resulted in a large patch of ominous clouds forming over the skies. Countless water droplets were gathering on the ominous clouds. When I transform into a dragon, I can even defeat budding realm experts overseas that possess battle techniques. A person who hasn't reached the budding realm in the underworld like you would be no match for me. Before the cow horns formed from water energy could crash into Wang Xian, they were instantly vaporized. Wang Xian swung his dragon claws directly at the body of Hai Jiao. What? When Hai Jiao saw Wang Xian breaking through and his sea serpent absorption not dealing any damage to him, he was astonished. Shit! 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 Seeing Wang Xian charging towards him rapidly, Hai Jiao could feel his heart wrenching. Grr! Sea Serpent Strike! Hai Jiao opened his mouth and spat a mouthful of blood on the horns in his hands. Instantly, they glowed an even brighter shade of blue. Within the sea serpent absorption, thousands and thousands of horns gathered together to form a terrifying huge horn. Extravagant and impractical. Your battle technique is a far cry from those experts overseas. Wang Dahai lowered his head slightly after seeing Hai Jiao's attack. His dragon horns glowed with a dull shade of red as he charged directly towards the giant cow horn formed from water energy. Bam! The dragon horns penetrated through and Wang Xian didn't stop for a moment. He immediately swung his dragon claws at Hai Jiao. Arg! Two wretched cries came from the sky. Hai Jiao's body was falling towards the ritual ground of Donghua sacred sect at a terrifying speed. Boom! A loud explosion reverberated from the ritual ground. In the middle of the ritual ground, a huge 5-meter hole that was over a dozen meters deep could be seen. Around it, a network of terrifying cracks had surfaced. You? Defeating me in 5 moves. At this moment, Wang Xian's voice resounded from the sky. How can this be possible? It can't be. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island is defeated. The second strongest expert of the underworld is defeated. SSS. This. In the Donghua ritual ground, everyone was in disbelief when they saw the figure in the deep hole and Wang Xian in the sky. The attack that the Lord of Sea Serpent Island had released previously was capable of destroying heaven and earth. Yet, he had been defeated. Defeated with relative ease. If everyone had gotten it right, the two of them had just exchanged 4 moves. No one would have expected the Lord of Sea Serpent Island to be defeated in 4 moves. This made them look exceptionally bitter. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island, who they had high hopes for, the second strongest expert in the underworld and the one who was even stronger than all of them, was defeated by the Dragon King. A red flame was emitted from Wang Xian's body. He lowered his head and looked down on the Lord of Sea Serpent Island who was lying in the deep hole. Kill me. With what you are capable of. Wang Xian's emotionless voice rang throughout the entire Donghua ritual ground. His lips curved into a smirk as he descended towards the ground. No. This isn't possible. My father wouldn't lose. He couldn't have been defeated. The young Lord of Sea Serpent Island was in denial as he screamed in horror. Cough cough. At this moment, a violent cough came from the deep hole and a figure crawled out of it gradually. At this moment, the Lord of Sea Serpent Island was in wretched shape. At his chest, TWP deep wounds had even reached his bones. Around the wound, the tissue was burnt black. There were still traces of fire sparks burning. His hair was scattered and the neatly trimmed beard was now torched. He looked extremely pathetic at this moment. As compared to the domineering and majestic look previously, it was as though this was another person. Hai Jiao's legs were shivering a little while he stared at Wang Xian. His expression had changed drastically. When your son tried to kill me some time ago, your outcome had been decided. Wang Xian landed on the ground and stared at the Lord of Sea Serpent Island with smiles. Besides that, I'm not the brazen one. It is you who are. Killing me within 5 moves. How ironic. As Wang Xian spoke, a fire sword appeared in his hand. The fire sword rotated gradually as it slashed towards the head of Hai Jiao in an instant. Fear gleamed in the eyes of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island as his body shivered. Bam! Dragon King, the outcome has been decided. Let's end it here. At this moment, a sword-shaped walking stick appeared before the fire sword and stopped it in the process. The voice of Nia Wuya reached him. Wang Xian squinted his eyes, turned over and looked fearlessly at Nia Wuya who was on the elevated stage. You are going to stop me from killing him? Wang Xian asked Nia Wuya coldly. With diabolism on the rise and chaos everywhere, the Lord of Sea Serpent Island is part of our alliance of the orthodox sects. You are going to stop me from killing him? Wang Xian interrupted him and questioned once again. Dragon King, this is the territory of our Donghua sacred sect and the Lord of Sea Serpent Island is a guest of ours. He is also the main force in the alliance of the orthodox sections. You can't kill him. Nia Wushuang looked solemnly at Wang Xian and replied. In that case, do you know the price of protecting him? Wang Xian stared harshly at Nia Wushuang. Price? What? Could it be that your dragon sect would make us, Donghua sacred sect, your enemy and become the enemy of the alliance of the orthodox sects? Hearing Wang Xian's highly confrontational demands, Nia Wushuang pulled a long face and answered. It isn't I who wants you as my enemy. It is you, Donghua sacred sect, who want my dragon sect as your enemy. Chapter 509, There's no rest for an enemy except death. It isn't I who wants you as my enemy. It is you, Donghua sacred sect, who want dragon sect to become your enemy. Wang Xian's icy tone resonated in the ritual ground, causing everyone to gasp in terror. All the saint-class forces stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. Just as always. When Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan heard that, they shook their heads at Wang Xian, who was glowering at Donghua sacred sect. As always, he was fearless of any forces and existences. Sacred followers guild elders, kill. Disciples of medical saint sect, kill. The entire medical saint sect, annihilate. Xiao clan, annihilate. Now he tried to kill Hai Jiao, the second strongest expert of the underworld, and make himself an enemy with Donghua sacred sect. All the surrounding saint-class forces stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. None of them uttered a word. They finally got some understanding of how this Dragon King worked. Do not provoke me. Whoever provokes me, there is only one word, battle. Nia Wuya and the bunch of experts from Donghua sacred sect were infuriated as they exploded bouts of murderous aura. So what if Donghua sacred sect is making an enemy with dragon sect? Said Nia Wuya as he stared daggers at Wang Xian with eyes full of coldness and killing intent. There's no rest for an enemy except death. If Donghua sacred sect is determined to protect Hai Jiao today, we'll see each other on the battlefield. Wang Xian answered coldly as he glared at Nia Wuya without wanting to lose out. Fine. What a brazen fellow. Since you're insolent, you shall stay here today, a Dan Realm old man beside Nia Wuya bellowed as he gave out a daunting radiance that pointed at Wang Xian. No rest for us. A dragon sect dared to have no rest with Donghua sacred sect. Another Dan Realm expert stood up with double blades hung at his waist. The moment he exuded his aura, the two blades gave out a buzzing sound. 3 Dan Realm experts let out a daunting vibe, trying to oppress Wang Xian. Hee, it looks like you guys already made a decision. Wang Xian exhibited a contemptuous smile. I have no grudges with Donghua sacred sect. But since you guys want to make an enemy with dragon sect, we'll gladly accept. And as he spoke, he stared at the 3 old men. You guys aren't my match yet. Wang Xian swept his disdainful gaze across all the people from Donghua sacred sect. Eventually, he stopped at Hai Jiao and curled his lips. Since Donghua sacred sect is protecting you this time, I'll kill you another time. Hee, rest assured that it will not be too long. As he spoke, Wang Xian spun around, looking slack. He commanded the rest of the Dragonians, "Let's go." All the people from Donghua Sacred Sect clenched their fists tightly with glistening eyes. They were hesitating as to whether they wanted to strike. At this time, Wang Xian suddenly whirled around and looked across all the hundreds of Donghua Sacred Sect experts. "If you guys cannot keep me here today, then Dragon Sect will be your nightmare from now on." Ha! Wang Xian chortled as he stalked out. Upon hearing Wang Xian, people from Donghua Sacred Sect were looking dreadful. Radiance flickered in Nie Wuya's eyes as he held the sword-like truncheon tightly in his hand. The atmosphere suddenly froze as all the surrounding Saint-class forces watched with solemn expressions. Apparently, Donghua Sacred Sect was out to protect Hai Jiao, and they had completely angered the Dragon King. Besides, Dragon King had made it clear that the Donghua Sacred Sect was going to make an enemy with them. There is no rest for an enemy except death. If it were other sacred sects who said the same thing, they probably would be contemptuous. But this was said by the Dragon King, the one who would slaughter anyone who provoked him. No one would doubt what the Dragon King said. "Keep him here," the old man beside Nie Wuya gritted his teeth and said with murderous eyes. Nie Wuya darkened his expression as he looked at all the Dan realm experts of sacred sects. All the Dan realm experts of the sacred sects watched indifferently as it was not their business. "Since sect leader is not around, we might not be able to stop him given our combined strength." Nie Wuya clenched his fist tightly and spoke in a dull voice. The strength that the Dragon King had demonstrated was compelling, such that everyone was wary of him. He used 4 strokes to beat the second strongest man in the underworld. The rest of the sacred sects dared not meddle in this due to Wang Xian's daunting combat power. Unlike Donghua Sacred Sect, they did not have the strongest expert of the underworld in their sections. Even though they hoped Dragon Sect could be annihilated, and the Dragon King could be slain, they were unwilling to take the risk. If they could not keep the Dragon King here today, an unparalleled expert would lead his inborn experts to assassinate the sacred sect disciples without stopping. None of the sacred sects or sacred clans could take such daunting power. Without exaggeration, Dragon Sect was currently the strongest in the underworld, apart from Donghua Sacred Sect. And the Dragon King would be the second strongest. The 2 old men beside Nie Wuya had sullen faces with eyes fixed on the departing figure. They were not confident in holding the Dragon King here. At his realm, it was hard to keep experts like him if he was determined to escape. Given Dragon Sect's strength, they make a good enemy of the 4 main devil sects, said Nie Wuya in a dull voice. He gazed around at all the ancestral sects and clans below the platform and heaved a deep sigh. His mood was extremely bad. Donghua Sacred Sect did not expect that they would make enemies with a formidable opponent. He threw a glance at Hai Jiao, who was severely injured, and took a deep breath. The alliance of the orthodox sects had to carry on. As for Dragon Sect, Donghua Sacred Sect was not that concerned even though they were mighty. In fact, their sect leader was not here today. When their sect leader killed Emperor Qi from diabolism, it would be the time to annihilate Dragon Sect. Donghua Sacred Sect, ha! After Wang Xian walked out of Donghua Sacred Sect, he had a trace of coldness surfacing in his eyes. The moment he had entered Donghua Sacred Sect yesterday, Wang Xian did not have a good impression of Donghua Sacred Sect. They only allowed their own experts to hover in the air while the remaining clans and sects had to be on foot. In today's meeting, all their inborn experts were seated while the rest of the inborn experts from other sacred sects had to stand. The entire arrogant and prideful performance irked Wang Xian. Hence, he did not have any good impression of this ancestral sect. On top of that, they involved themselves in Hai Jiao's matter too. Since they want to have a game, I'll play with them. The establishment of Dragon Sect was to awe the underworld. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes and asked Demo Yuan in a dull voice, "Where are those Dragonians of the Abyss?" "Dragon King, 7 of them are still operating the Abyss." In the face of the battles between diabolism and orthodox sects, there are many missions for killing diabolism. Now they are busy earning the spiritual stones. They even asked me for more manpower a few days ago. Mo Yuan replied with a broad smile. If that's the case, you'll take over the abyss and lead all the disciples of Dragon Sect. We'll assassinate all the inborn experts of Donghua Sacred Sect, said Wang Xian coldly. Since they're our enemy, there's no rest for them except death. Given Donghua Sacred Sect's strength and reputation, they would also wipe their enemies out completely. The underworld was such a place. Chapter 5:10, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 1. Dragon King, we will be passing by the abyss on our way back. Should we head over with the Dragonians? On the way back, Wang Xian and the group called for a bus to send them back to Rivertown. When they were on the roads, Mo Yuan asked this. Oh. The base of the abyss? Wang Xian was baffled. The base of the abyss is in the city ahead? Yeah. Ling City, a relatively famous city in the underworld. Mo Yuan nodded his head as he answered Wang Xian. A famous city? Wang Xian was a little confused. Yeah. Ling City is just beside the Fateless Forest. There are lots of martial artists in the entire Ling City. Moreover, many wanted martial artists seek refuge in Ling City. There's another more commonly known name of Ling City, and that's Ghost City. In it, there's a huge area where everyone has left and no one is residing. Mo Yuan explained to Wang Xian. It's a chaotic place and the base of the abyss is built right there. Moreover, they have established a rather good information department. These information agents are all outlaws recruited within Ling City. Ling City? I have not heard of it. Since we are passing by, let's go and take a look. Wang Xian nodded his head and instructed Mo Yuan. Yes. Mo Yuan nodded his head and went to direct the driver towards Ling City. After entering Ling City, Wang Xian realized that it was more of a larger county than a city. The roads of the entire city were a little cramped. There were also more houses and it was a little more chaotic as compared to Rivertown. Dragon King, we are here. When the car arrived at the city center of Ling City, Mo Yuan turned around and informed Wang Xian. Located in the city center. Wang Xian alighted and observed the surroundings while he asked. This base wasn't built by Long Qi and the rest. They took over an assassination group and built it into the base of the abyss. Mo Yuan explained as he led Wang Xian towards a shop ahead. Ling Yu Bar. Wang Xian lifted his head and saw the name of the shop. He smiled and entered it. It was roughly 5 p.m. and the bar hadn't opened for business. Mo Yuan took out his phone and informed Long Qi and the rest. Dragon King. Soon, 7 Dragonians opened the door and greeted Wang Xian respectfully. Dragon King, please follow us. Once they were in the bar, Wang Xian noticed some of the employees were already working. These employees were all ordinary people of both genders. They looked curiously at Wang Xian and the group. Dragon King. We usually enter through gate 2 and rarely enter through this gate. Long Qi said to Wang Xian in a solemn tone. Are there any other entrances? Wang Xian replied with a laugh. 5 of them. Long Qi answered and led them to an office. Soon after, Long Qi activated a switch and a tunnel leading underground appeared. This is just one of the entrances. There are 4 other entrances. As Long Qi spoke, he led them down the tunnel. After walking for approximately 1,000 meters, a huge underground space appeared before Wang Xian's eyes. This was the base of a first-class assassin group in the underworld in the past. It's extremely well hidden. Unless someone is part of the assassin group, it would be hard for them to enter. Long Qi explained to Wang Xian. This is a pretty huge place. It's almost half the size of the Dark Conjurer's base. Wang Xian looked around him in shock. Not many people were in the underground space. Other than the 7 Dragonians, the rest were all information agents. Information gathering was an important aspect of an assassin group. An assassin group without any information would basically be operating with both of their eyes closed. Even if they received a mission, it would take a huge amount of time to complete it. The entire Abyss base had 20-odd information agents processing information gathered from various places. For the near future, gather all information on Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian looked around and instructed them. The information on Donghua Sacred Sect might be a little troublesome. They are too strong and it would be hard for us to get. Long Qi frowned slightly and continued, however, we can buy information. Buy information? Yeah. Omniscient Group is an organization that specializes in selling intelligence. As long as you can afford it, any information can be bought. However, they charge exorbitant fees. Long Qi nodded his head as he explained. Omniscient Group. Wang Xian knew about the Omniscient Group. In the past, they had published information on him. The Omniscient Group knew everything within heaven and earth. This was the strongest information organization in the underworld. When it came to the news on the underworld, there was nothing the Omniscient Group didn't know. One could tell how incredibly strong the Omniscient Group was. The Omniscient Group is also in this city. Long Qi suddenly interrupted. Huh? Their base is here too. Wang Xian was taken aback and shocked. We got to know this by accident. Shenling Information Technology Private Limited. That should be the nest of the Omniscient Group. Long Qi added. Is it? I'm 70% sure. There were a few times we overheard their informers exchanging information in our bar. They are really, really secretive. Long Qi continued, furthermore, other than the Omniscient Group, the base of remains from Diabolism is also located within the Fateless Forest a short distance away. They have many disciples who are active in this place. Over the last few days, the number of martial artists in Ling City has been dropping rapidly. Omniscient Group and the remains are here. How interesting. Could it be that the Omniscient Group and remains are not aware of our existence here? Wang Xian was a little curious. The Omniscient Group was the best in gathering information. They shouldn't be unaware of things that were happening so close to them. Dragon King, there's a good chance they don't know about it. Our abyss has only been established for a short period. Moreover, the missions we have accepted are less than 10 thus far. Naturally, as we accept more missions, the Omniscient Group will likely notice us with their incredible network, explained Long Qi. Wang Xian nodded his head. That was reasonable. Although the Omniscient Group was incredible, it was impossible for it to know everything in the underworld. Since the establishment of the Abyss, it was now ranked on the top of the Assassin Group chart in the underworld. However, they had only been established for just a few months. Moreover, the Abyss was only made up of 7 people and had accepted a small number of missions. Interesting. If we could gain control of the Omniscient Group, everything would be easier. Wang Xian hesitated. After walking around the base of the Abyss, he started pondering. When he walked out of the base of the Abyss, it was already past 6 p.m. Wang Xian had no intention to return today and thus headed in the direction Long Qi had told him about. Shenling Information Technology Private Limited was a high-tech company. With regard to this company, Wang Xian had heard of it. It was one of the top 500 companies in the world and was among the most elite tier in the aspect of computer information. Besides that, Shenling Information Technology Private Limited also had its own satellite. With all smiles, the 2 beauties sat, leaning on the young men. Wang Xian looked at the eyes of the 2 beauties, as they appeared stoic and lifeless. Their hands were resting atop the wine glasses, while a fresh stream of blood was filling up the interiors. With satisfied looks on their faces, the two young men groped the beauties indiscriminately while they drank the fresh blood from the glasses. Ack ack. This is the life. It's been 50 years since I stepped into the deep ends of the forest to lead a primitive life when I was 10. Now, I finally get to enjoy life in this world of pleasures. Hee hee. Society these days is really one of the pleasure and enjoyment. When I'm able to refine the second set of bone puppets, I'm going to turn this little beauty into a bone puppet and have my fun with it every day. As for Faceless, those few old haggard bitches. They seem to be living quite the life right now too. They're here, TSK TSK. Look at that body, how mesmerizing. The conversation between the two young men could be heard loud and clear as it entered Wang Xian's ears. Wang Xian looked on with an icy stare. Through his piercing eyes, he could see two perverted elders in their 60s as they embraced the two beauties in their arms. "Hi there, handsome guy." Just then, an alluring voice called out to him. Wang Xian raised his head and saw a voluptuous woman looking at him with all smiles as she bent her body slightly. The woman even waved to the two young men seated in the corner. Wang Xian took a look at the woman and thought of those exquisite human skins housed within the Xinling building. So this is diabolism. Although many from the orthodox sects are annoying, these from diabolism are harrowing. Wang Xian thought to himself. This was not his first time seeing people from the remains. Previously, while on his way to the capital, Wang Xian didn't have much of a feeling during his encounters with them. But now that he had seen things for himself, he was overcome with an urge to kill. As Wang Xian raised his head to look at the shapely woman before him, what came into view instead was an old and haggard face that snarled in a grimace. "What do you want, old haggard bitch?" Wang Xian asked coldly, with a tinge of mockery, as he eyed the old hag. The enchanting woman was taken aback, as she reciprocated with an indifferent look. "Who are you calling an old haggard bitch, handsome?" "Do I look old?" the woman asked as she extended her hand and caressed Wang Xian's shoulders. "Is everyone from diabolism this unscrupulous and indiscriminate?" Wang Xian asked as he looked at the old hag before him before he swept a glance over at the two young men who remained in the corner. The woman froze upon hearing Wang Xian's words, as the smile on her face faded away before it was replaced by a surging force of ominous aura. "You know too much," the woman snapped with a growl, losing all sense of enchantment from earlier on. "Die!" Wang Xian shot back in an unsympathetic tone. With a swing of his arm, a threatening force struck directly at the woman. With such a force, even killing an inborn expert would be a piece of cake. Ah! When Wang Xian's arm landed on the woman, her face contorted as she shot him a look of trepidation. Boom! A bout of fresh blood was spat out from her mouth while her old, haggard and hideous body flew backward before crashing onto the area behind. "You're asking for doom." A snappy voice lingered across the bar, as it concealed the music being played. "Huh! The golden cicada sheds its shell. To think it's managed to hold off the fatal blow." Wang Xian exclaimed in mild surprise. He arched his brows before standing up gradually. "A martial artist? How dare you, asking for doom?" At the corner, the two young men stood up immediately. Their facial expressions darkened at the sight of the faceless old hag when they saw that she had resorted to the golden cicada sheds its shell stance in order to stay alive. Get out, all of you." Just then, Mo Yuan and a few other Dragonians hollered at the rest of the ordinary folks who were present in the bar, at the sight of what happened. They had been keeping watch within the premises. "Ah, the crowd responded. The holler, overwhelmed with a devilish aura, had raised fear in them. Even the tourists who had wanted to stay and watch the spectacle unfold began to race towards the exit in fright. Chapter 5:12, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 3. All of a sudden, all the tourists in the bar ran out in a hurry, including those few martial artists. These martial artists were at most level 5 or 6. Some were even weaker. Mo Yuan's scream made them sense horrifying risks. Long Qi waved his arm and the employees instantly lost their consciousness and fell to the ground. I had not expected to meet such a powerful inborn expert in this place. The old hag who managed to stay alive by shedding her skin revealed her ugly true self. She wiped away the blood on her mouth and stared intensely at Wang Xian with killing intent. The other 2 young men also walked over and stared coldly at Wang Xian. Who are you? Why are you offending our remains? I finally understand why there are so many sects in the underworld who wish to annihilate all of you. There are many scheming people within the orthodox sects, but you guys truly deserve death. Wang Xian glanced harshly across the 3 of them. Today, Wang Xian finally witnessed the true side of diabolism. They were truly unscrupulous in killing the innocent by brutal means. The bloody cultivation arts had distorted their souls. People like them shouldn't exist in this world. You will die quickly if you stick your nose into things you shouldn't. The old hag let out a wretched cry and a bell appeared in her hands suddenly. Ding ding. A sound came from the bell. As for the other 2 young men, they held identical bells in their hands too. The magical sound made it out of the bar. Swish swish swish. At this moment, 3 figures appeared in the bar. 2 girls and a guy. The 2 girls were incomparably beautiful while the guy was exceptionally stunning. Their eyes were empty and they had a faint stench of blood lingering around them. There was a black patch in their palms that glowed in a creepy dull light. Their fingers were long and extremely sharp. Brat, I'm going to skin you and dismantle your bones. The old hag's expression was contorted and she stared hideously at him. You truly deserve death for spoiling our mood. The other 2 young men shook their bells gently and the 2 beautiful girls moved before them in rigid movements. He's an inborn expert. I can't give all of his bones to you, the young man looked at the old hag and said plainly. He damaged one of my skins. I'm getting his skin and you can have his bones. Kill him, the old hag shrieked and shook the bell in her hands. Ding ding. Ding ding. The young man also shook his bell. 3 stiff figures instantly attacked Wang Xian. Their razor-sharp claws gave off terrifying auras. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Seeing their faces, they were all in their 20s. Yet, they had been killed by these devils. Wang Xian waved his arm and intense flames shrouded on the bone puppets. Arg! Wretched screams came from them. The bone puppets had a little spirituality after they were refined. What? The 2 young men and the old hag were shocked to see the bone puppets they had refined turning to ashes rapidly. Who are you? How can you be so powerful? Fear gleamed in the eyes of the 3 of them. 3 inborn level bone puppets were reduced to ashes directly. This. How can this be possible? Run! The 3 of them ran out without any hesitation. Wang Xian was emotionless as he waved his arm. 3 balls of flames flew towards the trio and surrounded them completely. What? How can this be possible? Bring me to the base of the remains. Wang Xian stared at them and demanded coldly. He wasn't paying attention to their screams. You. Who are you? The 3 of them looked fearfully at the flames around them and couldn't help but shiver. Me? Don't you know me? It doesn't matter. Hee hee. If you don't wish to die, bring me to the base of the remains, remarked Wang Xian plainly with a faint smile. You want to go into the base of our remains? A young man stared at Wang Xian and asked bitterly. That's right. Wang Xian chuckled. Bring me there and you guys might still have a chance to survive. Otherwise, I'll reduce all of you to ashes immediately. Alright. Since you are courting death, I'll bring you there, the old hag growled at Wang Xian with a hideous expression. Take the lead. Wang Xian instructed them emotionlessly. Behind him, Mo Yuan immediately called to all the Dragonians. SSS. Those three are from the remains. They are from the remains. Those that charged in previously are the bone puppets they made, and those who can make such bone puppets are, without a doubt, inborn experts. They are now controlled by that overly young man. He's the Dragon King. I've seen him once before. That young man is the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. Wang Xian used flames to control them as they walked out of the bar. When the martial artists that had chosen to stay witnessed this, their eyes widened and were filled with horror. Over the last few days, the disciples of the remains had been appearing in Ling City. Some martial artists had left in fear, but some had stayed because they were wanted by other governments or forces. Now that they saw the three inborn experts from the remains under the control of the Dragon King, they were astonished. What is the Dragon King going to do? A martial artist asked curiously. The two martial artists around him were mumbling to themselves in shock. I don't know. Dragon Sect has not joined the alliance of the orthodox sects and isn't willing to annihilate diabolism. Currently, they are labeled as an evil sect by Donghua Sacred Sect. All the sects in the underworld have expressed their willingness to join the alliance of the orthodox sects in preparation for the annihilation of diabolism. Only the Dragon Sect hasn't joined. All the martial artists are looking down on the Dragon Sect with contempt. The three of them conversed. One of them took out the phone and entered the underworld website. All the experts of the underworld have joined the alliance of the orthodox sects to eradicate diabolism. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect is exceptionally arrogant and isn't willing to join the alliance of the orthodox sections. Shocking. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect defeated the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and became the second strongest expert in today's underworld. The Dragon King from Dragon Sect is simply too arrogant. He severely injured the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and declared he won't rest until either the Dragon Sect or Donghua Sacred Sect has perished. He's not willing to join the alliance of the orthodox sects and acted just like a devil sect. Not only is the Dragon Sect unwilling to join the alliance of the orthodox sects, but they also are making Donghua Sacred Sect their enemy. A trash sect like this is no different from diabolism. I'm suggesting eradicating the Dragon Sect after eliminating diabolism. He's simply too arrogant. Annihilating diabolism was the trend of the entire underworld and what all martial artists hoped to see. Now that Dragon Sect had become the only sacred sect who was unwilling to join the alliance of the orthodox sects, all the martial artists in the underworld weren't happy with them. Besides that, he announced he wouldn't rest until either the Dragon Sect or Donghua Sacred Sect had perished at this critical juncture. Not only was he unwilling to help, but he also hindered the progress. This infuriated all the other martial artists. Although the sacred sects were wary of the strength of the Dragon Sect and didn't make a statement, their disciples could post critiques of them on the underworld website without reserve. All of a sudden, the Dragon Sect was seen as the equivalent of diabolism. TSK. When Wang Xian walked out of the bar and heard the comments around him, his face turned as cold as ice. I have no need to explain my actions to you guys. If I'm not happy with diabolism, I'll cut them down. If the orthodox sects offend me, I'll also kill. Public opinions from the underworld aren't going to change my mind. Chapter 5:13, Annihilating the Remains. That place heads in the direction of the Fateless Forest. What's the Dragon King intending to do, heading over with a group of Dragon Sect disciples? The base of the remains is located within the Fateless Forest. Don't tell me he's intending to form an alliance with the remains? That's a tricky question. As of now, the Dragon Sect are enemies with the Donghua Sacred Sect. Who knows, the Dragon Sect might really just form an alliance with diabolism. What the, are you for real? As Ling City was really small, news of what happened in Lingyu Bar soon spread across the entire city. Many appeared shocked and suspicious at the sight of the Dragon King, as he followed 3 members from the remains and headed for the fateless forest. Should the dragon sect really form an alliance with diabolism, it'll spell a huge disaster. Several martial artists shrieked with burdened expressions. They frowned at the sight of the group, whose silhouettes had disappeared into the darkness of the night. Currently, the prowess of the dragon sect had been acknowledged by the underworld as second amongst all forces. The prowess of the Dragon King was known to be second amongst all individuals within the underworld. Should such an expert, from such powerful sacred sect, form an alliance with diabolism, they would no doubt stand as a formidable opponent to the alliance of the orthodox sects. I must disseminate this message. A martial artist thought to himself with his mobile phone in hand. As he looked at the photographs taken on his phone, he proceeded immediately to post it for the underworld to see. The Dragon King of the Dragon sect is in a suspected alliance with the remains. 3 experts from the remains have led the Dragon King into the fateless forest. We, the alliance of the orthodox sects, will have to exercise caution. Upon the dissemination of the news, the entire underworld was sent into a frenzy. Today, the alliance of the orthodox sects had been officially formed, which the dragon sect had not joined. This had already caused the utter displeasure of many martial artists within the underworld. It only infuriated more, given that the Dragon King was also at extreme odds with the Donghua sacred sect. The dragon sect was thus slapped with terms like hindrance and evil sect. Yet, the entire underworld was sent into an uproar following the release of this news. An alliance between the dragon sect and the remains? So the dragon sect has come together with diabolism? To think that the dragon sect's really combining forces with diabolism. What in the world, this damned dragon sect, and its darn Dragon King. To think they're really forming an alliance with diabolism. Damn it, the power of the dragon sect is amongst the top within the underworld. Should they form an alliance with diabolism, it'll spell a huge damn disaster. It's probably due to the enmity forged between Dragon Sect and Donghua Sacred Sect today, hence the former's admission into diabolism in order to stand against the Donghua Sacred Sect. The Dragon Sect annihilated the Medical Saint Sect and Xiao Clan. Such a sacred sect is no different from diabolism, hence they should be wiped out the soonest possible. After the post was uploaded, it sent the entire underworld chiding and cursing away at the dragon sect. Many martial artists were infuriated, as they boasted blatantly of wiping out the dragon sect being the priority. Meanwhile, more than a dozen had gathered in a grand hall within the sacred grounds of the Donghua sacred sect, which was located amidst the central regions of the country. Those who had gathered looked on with deep frowns and awful expressions. Seated in the middle of those gathered was an elder, as he glistened with a metallic sheen. It was especially so with his arms, which shone like titanium. His hair was somewhat long, as it hung loosely scattered behind his head, while he exuded a unique aura that boasted no less dominance. The Dragon Sect and Dragon King. With regards to this, you guys have not handled this properly, the elder snapped with a low growl which resembled the impact made as one struck with a heavy weapon. Yes, indeed, sect leader, this Dragon King's too obnoxious. He wants to slay the Lord of Sea Serpent Island while remaining at loggerheads with Donghua Sacred Sect. Although it was only the size of a fist, the skull brimmed in vitality. Nether Skull, Level 12. The Nether Skull was a spiritual weapon which Wang Xian had obtained from Deity Lady of the Nether Flame denomination. Back then, this Nether Skull had released such formidable powers that even the Fire Demon had feared the trio. This made the Nether Skull worthy as a demonic weapon, as they increased their powers by absorbing Will-O-Wisp. What were Will-O-Wisps then? These were flames emitted from human bones after one died. Hence, one can imagine the number of lives it had cost to refine this Nether Skull. Even more so, as it ascended in levels, it would exhaust even larger amounts of Will-O-Wisp. And while will-o-wisps were not categorized under the heavenly flame, they appeared more terrifying otherwise. To subdue the demons using the demons. Wang Xian smiled before thrusting the nether skull into the air above the three remains disciples. If he can make it here, he must be pretty strong and he will make a powerful bone puppet. A sharp voice resounded and figure after figure rushed to the spot from all directions. Rattle, rattle, rattle. At this moment, the sound of wings flapping could be heard from the sky. Wang Xian lifted his head and looked into the sky. On a huge tree, a terrifying cadaveric crow with a human head was flying towards him. The human head had the looks of an exceptionally good-looking young man. However, his eyes were blood red and he had the body of a cadaveric crow. On the cadaveric crow, there was a young girl that looked like she was just 17 to 18 years old. She wore bright and revealing red clothes that exposed most parts of her body. A blue and red light flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. He realized that the girl was, in fact, a hunchback old man. He was staring harshly at Wang Xian and looked extremely creepy. Looking across the dozen-odd figures, Wang Xian found that they were all handsome or beautiful guys and girls. There were at least one or even two bone puppets standing beside them. A pungent stench of blood was emitted from their bodies. There were 5 humans and together with their bone puppets, there were 13. Seeing Wang Xian and the group, they raised their eyebrows in confusion and stood in a line. In the air, the hunchback old man stood on the cadaveric crow with a human head and was looking down at Wang Xian and the group. Who are you? How dare you kill the cadaveric crows of our remains and barge into the lands of our remains? When the hunchback old man on the cadaveric crow saw the huge skull above Wang Xian, he questioned him solemnly. Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. Wang Xian looked across them and killing intent flashed across his eyes. Dragon King from Dragon Sect. The crowd was taken aback and turned solemn. As the guards of the base of the remains, they had gathered news on the happenings in the underworld while they were on duty. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect was now the second strongest unparalleled expert in the underworld. What? Are you here to collaborate with us? Where are the 3 disciples of our remains? The hunchback old man standing on the cadaveric crow had just glanced through the thread on the underworld website. He squinted his eyes and focused on the nether skull above Wang Xian's head while asking him. Collaboration? Wang Xian was taken aback but soon revealed a smirk. The disciples from the remains? Let me send you guys to meet them. Wang Xian waved his arm and a stream of will-o-wisps shot out from the nether skull instantly towards the hunchback old man on the cadaveric crow. They are enemies. We are under attack, the hunchback old man shouted loudly upon seeing Wang Xian attacking suddenly. Kill. Today, I'm here to annihilate the remains. Wang Xian ordered. Mo Yuan and the Dragonians behind Wang Xian instantly sprang into action. When the hunchback old man saw the will-o-wisps crashing into him, he could feel the strength of it as his expression changed substantially. He moved his arms and the cadaveric crow with a human head below him shielded him immediately. GGA. The cadaveric crow cried out loud and fell onto the ground directly. What? The hunchback old man was furious and drew an ivory dagger instantly. Retreat. We are under attack from the Dragon Sect. We are under attack from the Dragon King. Inform Lord Ocean. The hunchback old man shouted in his sharp voice which instantly reached the entire base of the remains. Run. When the other 5 experts from remains saw the strength Mo Yuan and the group released instantly, they were horrified and retreated immediately. Will you be able to escape? Today, I, Wang Xian, shall enforce justice on behalf of heaven. Wang Xian waved his arm and dense fire dragon energy was injected into the nether skull. The nether skull exploded in size and reached over 2 meters. At the same time, it started devouring the members of the remains at an astonishing speed. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.